get that one?
We're going to get outvoted tonight.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, the City of Monona City Council, Monday, October 20, 2025. Could you please call the roll?
Alder Holmquist?
Here.
Alder Wolf?
Here.
Alder DeCouva?
Here.
Alder Kugel excused? Alder Bernstein?
Here.
Alder Rademacher? Here. Mayor Moore?
Here. Would you please rise for pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Takes us to approval of the minutes from August 18 and October 6, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any changes, corrections, or additions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. We have appearances this evening, two very special appearances this evening from the Monona Grove School District Superintendent, Dr. Tanya Frederick, and School Resource Officer Luke Wench, who would like to update us on the School Resource Officer Program. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to be on this side of the table. Well, first of all, thank you for having us. I just want to share an update about our partnership between the Monona Grove School District and the Monona Police Department and our SRO program. So our collaboration continues to be one that's pretty robust and examples of that community partnership in action. And we're very grateful for that continued opportunity. The presence of a school resource officer enhances our safety and it builds relationships, not only with our students, but with our families and the larger community. It is a great mechanism for us to have prevention and also real-time problem solving, not only in Monona, but also in collaboration with the Cottage Grove Police Department. So we're very grateful for the Monona Police Department's collaboration with them. The program really strengthens our school safety and preparedness. Having an officer embedded in our schools allows for quick communication and coordinated responses, as well as ongoing training for our staff and our students and information for our families. Second, it builds positive relationships between students and law enforcement. Our SROs are not just a safety presence, but they are mentors, they are listeners, they are coaches, they are club advisors, and it's a visible reminder of the officers are here to help and support our youth. Third, our partnership allows the collaborative problem solving. We have regular meetings between district leadership and the departments, including the Cottage Grove Police Department, to really make sure that we're working together proactively and using restorative and educational approaches whenever possible. We are pleased this year that we were able to add a full-time staff to the district who is our safety and security director. Her name is Rachel Martin, and she is working in collaboration with both of the police departments along with all of our school buildings for that coordinated effort. So I'm going to turn it over to Luke so that he can share the great work that he does, and you'll really take away about when I say the mentor, the listener, and just that positive force in the building. And so we're really proud of this partnership, and we're really grateful for the continued collaboration between the Monona Grove Police Department and the school district.
That's right. Thanks.
I'll turn it over to Luke for all the words.
Thank you, Dr. Frederick. I don't have a well-prepared speech, so I'll do the best I can. I do have some PowerPoint slides, though, so that'll help.
Sure.
Maybe?
So we get to advance here, hold on.
As noted, we do have a collaboration, so the Monona Grove School District being split amongst two communities, we are able to collaborate with two different police departments, and that is a great resource because we have students that reside in Cottage Grove and come to school here in Monona and vice versa. So using the resources from both communities is an asset, and having two different personalities in the SRO position is, I guess, unbeatable in my opinion, because you get the best of both worlds. So it's really that collaboration between the two different communities which helps the district. So you can, next slide. A little bit of who we are. Officer Zenas Lee is not able to be here tonight, but I work for the Monona Police Department, 20 years of police experience. And this is 9 complete years. This is my 10th school year within the school district. Cottage Grove has Officer Zenas Lee, who has 3 years on the job, and this is his 2nd year in the schools. So that collaboration is always building and moving forward. Some of the things that I have done over the course of the last school year, So I have the Where's Lunch program, which allows students at the high school to find me at a community event or at one of their athletic events or sporting events, come up and have a conversation with me, and they get entered into a drawing, kind of like Where's Waldo. They find me, have a conversation, and then they get entered into a drawing for, like this year I collaborated with the school to get a parking spot that rotates monthly, so students that are unable or unable to afford or unable to get because they're not of age or the proper grade level to get a parking spot, they can do that now if they participate. Lunch with Lunch, which I do at the elementary level, so I go and have lunch with the kids every once in a while, go to recess, hang out, do the positive relationship building things that show what a police officer is outside of the uniform. As you can see, I mean, this is typically what I wear, a soft uniform, plain clothes, more approachable. I'm also our lead and only fishing club advisor, so started the fishing club a couple years ago with a staff member that left and kept it going, wrote some grants, got some free money and some equipment for kids that want to participate in that club and connect with them on a different level, see what they like to do and help them achieve certain goals in life. Ski and snowboard club advisor, I'm also that. I'm a Stop the Bleed instructor and Alice certified instructor for active threat trainings, which I use not only within the Monona Grove School District, but also there's been questions about how we help the greater community, so we've done that for City Hall, City Council historically, the library here, Immaculate Heart of Mary, Catholic School, One City Schools, and other community entities that want active threat training. We have utilized that for. I am also on the steering committee for the SRO conference that is held annually within the state of Wisconsin, so I help advise and direct and get speakers for that. Which really goes into being able to talk about what's happening within our schools and getting training to better myself and make our community more safe, right? I'm also on the Dane County School Safety Consortium, so I help steer schools within Dane County and what helps keep everybody here safe and collaborate to make sure that we're all on the same page doing, good work together so that common language is used for everybody and makes sense so we're not all in silos. And then continued work with active threat and safety training, like I said, other entities within the city. So you can go to the next slide there. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. I could sit here and talk to you all day till I'm blue in the face. As Chief knows, I have a hard time shutting up sometimes. So I figured some pictures were helpful. I go to a lot of events and am involved in a lot of things. A lot of parents and community members recognize me outside of my role. And that is helpful for me in building that rapport and those relationships with the community. So I go down in the bottom right, go to Winnequa and play football with the kids in the spring and play gaga ball in the pit, although I'm not very good at that. The fishing club, we were able to assist McFarland Park and Recs last year with a youth fishing event that they had. So the club and a couple members and I went down and helped kids bait hooks and take fish off the hooks and do the whole nine, grill brats and all of that. And then we do, pretty unique to the Monona Grove School District and the Monona Police Department, is we do state send-offs for any of our athletes that get to participate in a state-sanctioned event. We give them a police escort through town, lights, sirens, get to go through the red lights, all the whole nine. And the kids and the parents really love it, so they've allowed me to wreck a few of their photos over the years. But yeah, you can go to the next slide there. Just a couple of our stats. So I keep unofficial stats, but I've had, in the last year, I had 308 official student contacts. And really, the important part about that whole statistic is 40% of those contacts were initiated by students. So that's not me walking through the hallways harassing kids or writing them tickets or doing whatever. That's them coming to me with issues, problems, questions, things that they have either experienced in life or in the community. And again, that doesn't include my countless conversations with students in the hallway about how their weekend was or how they did in gymnastics last night or whatever the case may be. There's also a breakdown of the other enforcement issues. You know, it's a learning environment, so there are mistakes that are made and there are, citations that have to be issued at times, but we try to avoid that as much as we can and use it as an educational piece to incentivize them to improve behavior. Next slide, Neil. This is a breakdown of essentially what my incident types look like. They're a little bit different between me and the middle school, but we have since the beginning of this year changed that or altered that, so hopefully it'll be a little bit closer. But most of the contacts that are happening are rapport building exercises, so interacting with kids in a positive manner. Parking, obviously, is always an issue, as I'm sure you guys have heard. But a lot of like verbal counseling and things, just kids coming with questions that I can answer for them or attempt to find the answer, and those types of things. Next slide. Officer Z is also a club advisor for the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders Club, which I think is pretty unique, having his perspective and ability to connect with kids in that regard. He also does 6th grade day with Officer Z, so they get to just hang out with him and kind of experience everything that he does. And he is also a newly trained Stop the Bleed instructor, so very beneficial for both communities. And we have done one collaborative training that we assisted Stoughton Rod and Gun Club with, so that was helpful. Next slide.
Oh, skip one.
I think we skipped one there.
Yep.
So Officer Z had 261 official contacts, and he had to one-up me by 0.5%, with 40.5% of all student contacts being initiated by students. And that really climbed throughout the year with him being new last year. It was difficult for him to initiate that contact, and people wanted to engage with him. So we really saw that when he became a club advisor, that climbed really quickly. And that also doesn't include the casual contacts throughout the day. So his is a lot, 50% of his contacts are rapport building. So again, breaking down that level, and he's in the middle school and the elementary levels, right? So I think that's even more important than at the high school level, to build that relationship and show the difference between, what you imagine police in videos and movies and TV versus what it can look like in real life. So next slide. These are some photos from Z and his involvement. Even the high school kids love him. They recognize him from when he was on a patrol officer. So in the middle there, that's him at the pink out at the football game, and they all gave him a pink headband and let him dress up and participate in their festivities, which was fun. And the kids love him, and he's been a great asset in addition to the school district. And like I said, the collaborative effort, the relationship between he and I, and we talk, I would say daily, if not multiple times a day, has really helped foster positive relationships in and of itself. Next slide. So obviously with any program, right, there's always room for improvement. And so some of that would be strengthening our communication lines with stakeholders, whether that be the City of Monona, the Village of Cottage Grove, school board, parents, families, students, staff, city council, those kinds of things. So figuring out a way to improve those things. Continuing to collaborate with student device monitoring and what that looks like with the school district, offering our law enforcement perspective and how to help regulate and monitor that, because it's kind of a tricky slope. We also would like to organize a mock crash or mock accident, which I'm sure you've heard or seen in other communities throughout the area. It's kind of making a comeback, so trying to get all of those moving pieces aligned to work out. Hopefully it'll be before prom this year, so we're working on that. We want to add Stop the Bleed to secondary health class. So we were able to do a presentation last year for one of our health classes at the high school, where they were able to walk away with a certification and a certificate to aid them in their college application or their job training skills and all of that, which is helpful, but we'd like to continue that and offer more opportunities for that. And then our ongoing work and evaluation of emergency response and security protocols. So we currently have standard response protocol and standard response method, standard reunification method, I'm sorry. And so improving those processes so that if an event were to happen, we can do that seamlessly and effortlessly with not only our district and police department, but the Cottage Grove community in the greater Dane County area as well. So, next slide. Yeah, I think Rachel's not here, but a great asset, former law enforcement that we were able to collaborate with at the district level to help move some of these agenda items that we have forward. So super helpful and beneficial to the district and the community as a whole. It comes with 10 years of law enforcement experience at Waunakee Police Department. So, yeah, this is just, we can move past this slide, just kind of an agenda for what we have planned. And yeah, more things that we have coming down the pipeline for our schools, like securing our vestibules and adapting those to be more of a keep people out and identify what their reason or their purpose is for the schools. and then continuing in our improvement of the behavioral threat assessment teams and management of that, which is really a great collaborative effort of not only the different communities in the school, but also other local law enforcement agencies, and communicating how that looks amongst the county. Next slide. And that's all I got for you. That is a 2024-25 year in review in a very quick nutshell.
I'm going to break protocol and say that if anybody has any questions, or this is an appearance, this is a great opportunity to ask either Dr. Frederick or Luke. Does anybody have any questions about the program? Teresa?
I do. So thank you, Officer Wunsch, and thank you for helping me learn how to pronounce your last name.
Welcome.
Rhymes with lunch. I haven't met Officer Rachel Martin. Can you say a bit about what her role is in the school district?
Yeah, so 3 years ago, the district started a position of a safety and security director, or coordinator, and it was part-time. And last year, when I got here, we realized we just had a substantial amount of work to do with implementing systems, everything from, do we have the right kind of radio towers that if the cell phones go out, that we can go between the two communities, to, as Luke mentioned, securing our vestibules. So lots of systems work to make sure that we have all of the correct training, in addition to hardening of our facilities, and then also just fostering those relationships between the different community entities that would all need to come together in the event that we had some sort of a bigger emergency.
And am I understanding correctly, Rachel is an employee of the school district?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Really
for having
appreciate
us.
it. Thank you for the update.
Yes.
And thank you, Chief, for jumping in just in case.
I told him I was going to be a good backup.
Okay. Not seeing, is there anyone else here to make an appearance this evening before we close the appearance section? Have a good evening, you guys. With that, I will close the appearance section. There is no public hearing. There is no consent agenda this evening, and that takes us to action items tonight. And G1A of unfinished business, consideration of ordinance 10-25-976 requiring a four-way stop-controlled intersection at Panther Trail and Midmore Road, brought forth by the Public Works Committee.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
There was a second, and move approval in a second. Yep. Any other questions for Dan this evening around this particular item? Comments, questions? Okay, none? Okay. This is a change of ordinance and therefore requires a roll call, so if you could please call the roll, Lily.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder DeBoer.
Aye.
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Thank you. That takes us to G1B, consideration of ordinance 10-25-797, establishing no parking areas on West Broadway Service Road, also brought forth by the Public Works Committee.
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And I have a second. Any other questions, comments? for Dan? Once again, this is an ordinance. If you could please call the roll, Lynn.
Alder DePula.
Aye.
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Thank you. That takes us to 1C, consideration of resolution 25-10-2835, consenting to the Public Finance Authority issuance of taxable revenue bonds for Pier 37 Monona LLC project, brought forth by the city administrator. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other comments from you, Neil, first, or any other questions for Neil on this particular item?
Mayor, I would just note that Mr. Dorn was unable to attend tonight, but he did forward an email that was directly shared with council and kind of explaining his interest in pursuing this option. For the general public, I guess, as we're running, this is not city financing. This does not have any tax dollars involved in it from the city, so this is actually an independent bond issuance that will be assisting this project within the city, but there is no financial obligation to the city for this borrowing.
Any other questions, comments on this particular item?
I guess I would just have a comment that I think it's something that I don't think any of us had heard of this before.
Yeah.
Bill Cole had not heard of it before, he told me. But there are quite a few communities in Wisconsin specifically that have approved these issuances of these bonds, so. Yeah,
Interesting.
Good program.
Okay.
yeah.
Great. Okay.
I have one question. Do you know what the rate is that these bonds are issuing?
That I don't know if they'll know exactly what it is, Alder, until they get into, but I think what they're estimating is generally, I want to say a quarter to a half point
Yeah.
off of the project, and I think in a significant size of the project, pretty good savings for the developer, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But is that also the case that municipalities generally get a lower rate? So it wouldn't, I mean, not that this program applies to us, but if something like this were available to municipalities, it wouldn't necessarily stack up because we already have a lower rate. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor, and these are still taxable bonds, so
Right.
those are actually at a higher rate than what the city would generally borrow at a non-taxable rate.
Right. Right, but it does work well for the developer. Okay. That being the case, I don't believe since there's anything, this is a voice vote. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Resolution carries. Takes us to item number 1D, consideration of resolution 25-8-2823, approving the Plan Commission recommendation for the Broadway Senior PIP at North Point Development Corporation, brought forth by the Plan Commission. And as you just saw, Director Plowman is here, and I know Sean, who's from North Point Development, is also on screen. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Okay, now, any other things you'd like to add, Doug, or?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I can just give an update, sort of, since this first came through, this, of course, being the second read, there has just been one item that I would just like to flag. So this is for the precise implementation plan for the Broadway Senior Project. This is an age-restricted 55-plus senior housing project that is receiving WHEDA tax credits and will incorporate well with the adjacent Broadway townhomes and loft, which recently completed. So again, this is coming forward for the second read, having been introduced in August. The main change is shown in the updated resolution that was included in the packet, and specifically the highlighted section at the bottom. So this has to do specifically with floodplain regulations and some changes that have taken place. So some of you may remember back in 2011 that there was some fill placed on this site with the Whitehorse family. They did that in order to remove the property from the floodplain. The city partnered with them, and FEMA ultimately approved that request. There was a project in 2017, a DOT project, that used the best hydraulic models available to them, which was upstream of the North Point project, that used 2009 information, and so did not incorporate the placed fill into the calculations there. Updated floodplain maps came out in April of this year, April of 2025, which now show this property to be in the floodplain, although the ground is above the base flood elevation for that area. So the city is currently supporting revisions being led by North Point's engineer working through this process and with FEMA. But that being said, there may be some implications for the project based upon the city floodplain ordinance and sort of standards moving forward. So After speaking with the city attorney, it was decided that this was the best way to give the applicants the opportunity for their application to be considered while still sort of having that protection there that this still needs to address and satisfy floodplain concerns. So that's really the reason and a little bit of background for the highlighted section. And like you said, we're joined by Sean O'Brien from North Point online as well to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Director? Yep.
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
So if they can't, I mean, the floodplain concern is that it's actually in the floodplain, right?
So it's a little not as clear as that. So it relates to the underground parking and the fact that it's building upon areas that the land is fill rather than naturally occurring grade. So there may need to be some revisions to the plans to sort of satisfy that, or just depending upon some of the outcomes with FEMA, I would say. So there's still to be some discussions behind the scenes, and certainly substantive change, would come back for a revision to the PIP. But the extent to which it is going to be held to the city floodplain standards is still sort of to be determined based upon the FEMA outcome, effectively.
Okay. So passing this, even with that hanging out there, allows them to go ahead with the project?
Not necessarily with the project, but it at least shows that entitlements are in place, which I believe is necessary for tax credits, and sort of keeps those things in play, whilst also, again, still holding them to sort of local, state, and federal standards as well.
Okay.
Any other questions for either Director Plowman or for Sean? Hearing none. This is approving the PIP, and so this would be a voice vote, correct? So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks.
This takes us to new business. Number 2A, consideration of resolution 25-10-2836, approving the 26-2030 capital improvements program and the 2026 capital borrowing put forth by Mayor Moore. Before we start working through this evening, I would just remind everybody that this is first read. I know we kind of feel like we saw this before, and we did, at least parts of it, but this is just first read, so we won't be taking any votes tonight, and this is just an opportunity to walk through the amendments and walk through what's been put forth tonight. So, and as you can see, Finance Director Hodeker has moved up to the mic. So the floor is yours, Mark.
I don't have much to say. When we go through the amendments, I'll probably have more to say, kind of based on why we took the items out. Just so you know, should be a summary sheet in there of a list of the amendments, so just so everybody knows. The overall proposed budget was $5,716,000. If all the amendments are approved, we'll add $2.3 million to that capital budget to get to $8,029,000. As far as the general portion, which affects your debt service levy, goes from $2.5 million and add 1.2 to get to 3.7. So if this is all approved, that would be the impact on the 2026 capital budget.
Right. Thank you. And I just wanted to say, too, before we rolled forward too quickly, that I just want to reiterate, as you know, when we had the Capital Committee of the Whole, I provided some perspective, my perspective as mayor, for why we developed the budget the way we developed the budget. And I just want to reiterate that I think it's important to hold the line and to show restraint in this year. I don't think there's a week that goes by when I don't get approached by at least one resident and typically several, either pleading us, pleading me, or, pleading the city to, because people are, I would say, a little bit shell-shocked, inclusive of some people that are on, many people in the community that are on fixed incomes. So my perspective still stands. So with that,
Mayor?
Yes.
Before we get into the details, Mark, could I ask you just to repeat something? Something that you said about the summary sheet, right?
Yeah.
So could you just lay out, in just broad terms, what's the current number? What would the final number be if all the amendments pass? What's the current impact to the average Monona resident? What would the final impact be if all the amendments pass?
Yeah, no, I don't have those exact numbers for the impact. I can have that for the next meeting.
Sure.
Break that down. But it just as it shows up there.
Right,
The
yeah.
beginning is 5.7. You add in another $2.3 million to get to the overall capital budget would be an $8 million capital
Mhm.
budget. So there'd be impact. Some of them affect the general borrowings from the $2.5 million to the 3.7. So that'd be impacting your debt service levy. That number I'll have next meeting. And then there's the sewer impact. Is one of the budget amendments, adding them $1.1 million is added. That one we'd have to associate a 15% increase to the sewer rates, and we need that effective as of 1/1/2026. Now, the reason why that would need it is because we'd have to meet revenue bond requirements. So that would be needed to increase those. And we just increased the rates, and that was just to meet our current situation. To add this in there, we'd have to get another 15%.
Yeah. So could I ask that for our next meeting, could you have those numbers?
Yeah.
So it's just a nice talking point, or not so much a talking point, but just something that's easy for folks to understand.
I have them
What
already.
would my taxes be as the budget stands now as proposed by the mayor? What would my taxes be
Yeah.
with all these amendments? That would be nice to know.
well, I would just say, and Mark, obviously, correct me if I need correcting. I'm always open to that, as you know. But keep in mind that this is only one of two budgets, and people's
Right.
taxes are going to go
Right.
up regardless.
Right. This is only
Of
capital,
this.
right.
There's already going to be an increase.
Yeah.
Because of increase in the levy and increase in property values. So, it's not just this one piece, is
Mhm.
my point.
Good
And we
point.
haven't tackled operating yet.
Good point.
Right. Okay. So with that, I think we should probably just start and walk through the amendments, yes? So the First Amendment, I believe, is number 2601, brought forth by Alder Woods to reinstate the Nichols Road street design.
Yeah. Can I explain that one?
Yeah.
So, before everybody, so this one right here, I broke out what the design cost was, because this is to get the street design. So, total design cost is $323,000. I round, so I'm just going to the nearest number. We've already borrowed in 2024 and 2025, $180,000, but we did approve an engineering contract for $165,000. I can't remember the exact dollar amount. So this, to finish the design, be $143,000 would be the actual increase to the design of Nichols Road. But what we end up doing when we were doing the budget is like, okay, we're not doing Nichols Road. We already borrowed $180,000. We've only spent through 9/30 $70,000. So that left us about $109,000 left over. So he said, okay, let's take $100,000 of that, reduce the capital budget. I plugged that number to the other revenues in Tony Watha road construction. So if you add that back in, you got to add back in the $100,000. So the overall impact would be $243,750 would be the budget amendment. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah. Doug, since you proposed this amendment, would you like to?
Yeah, I'm still kind of trying to digest all that Mark said. Because the way I was looking at it, if we need 143,000 to finish this, but 100,000 of what we borrowed last year that would have gone towards this, then that amount would have been, we'd only need like 43,000 to borrow.
As you can see, Brad has stepped up to the plate.
No, regardless, the design costs Brad gave me was 323,000. We did borrow 180,000. So to finish that, we still would need 143.
Oh, I see what you did there. Okay. So you put, in that calculation, you put the whole thing back in.
Yeah, to finish the whole design, to finish the design costs. And then at the time, since we weren't doing the project, we had
Right.
that money left over.
Right.
So we reduced the other revenue, the other general obligation borrowing.
Right.
So as a point of clarification, I got an update from Strand for what's needed to complete design in addition to what we've already gotten contracted. It's 105,000 total in 2026. So we would take what we have now, the balance that we have now.
We would need the total design cost is what I need.
So we take the balance that we have now plus 105,000. That's what we need.
So you're saying then what was expected to be the total design cost of 324 is actually
correct.
less?
That's not how much is needed in 2026.
But I mean, that would have been for the, right, that was the total design cost over both years.
Right. No, 270,000 was the total. We contracted with Strand for 170 in 2025.
Okay,
We needed 85,000 more to complete the final design in 2026. And now we need 105, so it went up by about $20,000 total.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll have some time to think about that between now and when we vote on it. I mean, basically, there's a couple of reasons I think we should continue with this project. I mean, you know, partly is because once we actually, like right now, the design cost, the city's paying for all of it. Once we actually get into construction, we get 65% from the feds, from the MPO funding for the project. So there's that. But more importantly, I think this project gives us a chance to make the corridor on Nichols from Maywood over to Winnequa Road much more of a pedestrian-centric corridor, particularly through Winnequa Park to accommodate, we know that we have big crowds there on a fairly regular basis, at least for 6 months of the year. And it would also, there's some fairly poor pavement conditions in the existing sidewalks. Are adequate, but they're narrow. This project, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, but they would also be making improvements to the Nichols Road Schluter intersection.
That's correct.
That anybody who's driven that knows that it does present safety hazards because of the hill and the angle and the size. There's just a whole lot of pavement to traverse that could be changed, tighten the intersection up, hopefully improve sight lines. So I think, that would be a safety benefit for it. So to me, it's like we're going to need to do Nichols Road at some point, and we have a chance to get the federal government to help us pay for 65% of the construction cost. So we should take advantage of it.
Yeah, I would just say, and first of all, Brad and I.
Mayor, I think you really need to ask the rest of the council first if they have comments, because once you give it to us, it's not yours.
For sure,
anymore.
I was just going to reflect what you just said 65%, so I was
Right.
just gonna indicate what the other percentage was in terms of dollars, that's all. I wasn't gonna be making the case for anything. So, anyway,
What is the total
Teresa.
project cost for construction is 1.4?
The estimate was 1.6, but scope has been honed in since then. We've taken a couple $100,000 off that cost
Yeah.
estimate. So.
So whatever.
That sheet has a total cost on it. This is from Brad. We
Oh,
got it
okay.
last week, so.
Right.
But there's line items in the cost estimate, like halfway lighting, which we wouldn't
Right.
be doing, and things like that, that are
Right.
kind of boilerplate for a lot of engineers for
Right.
these types of projects. So they
Right.
just threw a cost estimate in there.
right,
Don't necessarily need those things.
right.
The project at the MPO budget funding is currently in 29, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, 2029 for construction.
And I know you've had some conversations with them about possibly moving it back a year.
Right now, we're just gonna stay status quo until we know a little bit more.
That makes
It is
sense.
possible to move the project if there's fiscal tightness or
Right.
otherwise that we need to push something. So, yeah. And there's no guarantee about the funding then at that point. You almost have to amend the tip and reapply and see what kind of funding is available in that window.
Right.
Because each four-year window is a different allotment at the MPO. So,
Yeah.
Could be more, could be less, right?
It's probably going to be less than it was. I mean, not what we would get, but the total amount that MPO
Right.
is going to have is going to be less.
Alderwood, what, is that because of a federal component,
Yeah.
which is going away?
It's not
Or-
going away, but it's going back more, I think, to more normal historical levels. There
Because,
was a huge bump after the infrastructure bill.
Right.
And, it's they're not going to stay at those spending levels.
Right.
Assuming they ever actually pass a budget, so,
yeah,
which hopefully we'll do before then. Actually, I'd rather they got something together before, anyway, it's irrelevant. So yeah, I don't really have any more to say. There was one. Oh, Brad, I did have one other question, I guess. In terms of the timing of this project with the timing of whatever we end up doing with the government building across the street, do those need to be coordinated or not?
No.
Why do you say that?
We can always do any type of curb amendments in the future, so you can cut a new curb in, you can add a curb head if needed, so it wouldn't have much impact on the actual street itself.
Okay.
I thought it did have an impact if we were doing the bays up front.
The architect would have to come up with a design that fit the roadway. Chicken and the egg. Whichever one comes first, the other has to adjust to meet those. I did have one thing. Somebody had mentioned something about the pavement. Strand did give us a rough estimate for how much it would cost to resurface the street from Winnequa to Maywood, because that's kind of the other alternative with the way the pavement's going. It's around $400,000 is their approximate cost. And that doesn't include intersection realignment, pathways, sidewalks, ADA, ramps, any of that stuff.
Brad, can we talk a bit about this figure that you just shared? So is this, if I understand you correctly, this is the amount it would cost if we just sort of look at the maintenance of this road in the simplest of terms? we don't get any of the others, I mean, it's just, if we turn down the grant and we just go about it in our own way, it would cost $400,000. And we would also be out the sunk costs that we already have in the Nichols Road project, correct? Because we do have some costs that we've already approved.
Yes, so we've spent around 70,000 right now on design. Not all of that would be wasted because they have done some survey work.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
they would put parts of the project
Yeah.
manual together for a resurfacing
Okay.
project. But yeah, it would be just resurfacing. We would take 1.5 or 2 inches off of the existing pavement, lay new surface in, and then we'd have to restripe everything. There's a lot of striping on Nichols Road.
Is resurfacing, so around Maywood Elementary School, there was recently some work that was done. Is that a resurfacing project on Greenway?
Yes, yes.
So that would be, when you say resurfacing, that the top layer's kind of removed and
Yep.
then new layers put on, and that would be one way to approach the needed maintenance on Nichols Road,
That's most likely, I would assume that's what Dan
would do.
would propose, yeah.
And how far out would that maintenance be needed? Like for how much longer? The current road, maybe I don't pay attention. Maybe it's not, maybe it's in worse shape than I think it is. I don't.
within about 3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 years out, we'd need another $400,000. Got it,
We would do it all.
got it. Whereas if we stay with this grant, the length of renovation would be shorter. It would not go all the way out to Monona, right?
That's correct.
It would start at,
Maywood Road and you would go to Winnequa Road.
from Maywood to Winnequa.
But I think that what Dan and I had talked about at one point is that if this went forward, we would pave the rest of the entire
Got it.
stretch too. Then.
Got it, okay.
Is that the 400,000 you're talking about?
No, that's be more.
Okay,
400,000 is just to repave between Winnequa and Maywood.
oh, so you really are comparing apples to apples?
Yeah. But that's Strand's preliminary estimate. That's what they
That's
came
not
up
what
with.
we were told.
Wow. That's shocking. Yeah. I mean, I believe you, I just think it's a lot of money. But that's what it is. Okay. So just kind of like what I asked Mark before, if we could just like, the summary, the take home of it all is, we keep the course, we accept the grant money, what's the price tag versus we stop the project, we turn away the grant money, and in the next 3 to 4 years, we do the work ourselves. What's the price tag on both of those?
Well,
Ballpark, super ballpark, like,
I think we have to look at it. It's the first I kind of heard these numbers tonight, so I'd
Okay,
like to
maybe
take
for
a
the
look at
next
these.
meeting? Yeah.
This is the first
Sure.
time I
for the next meeting, that'd be great.
mentioned,
Yeah.
the first time I heard the 400,000, the new design number. It's
Okay, yeah.
trying to learn it on the fly here doesn't help.
And there's a third potential option, is there not, which is that we would postpone the project
Right,
further with the intent of requesting
another, yeah.
of the funding get delayed
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, and so I guess for that
Right.
reason, you can't really estimate what it would cost, right? Because no matter when we would do it, we would always pursue some sort of assistant funding.
Do we have the PACER rating too? We probably need.
Yeah,
So just a quick calculation that I did, if the total construction cost is 1.4, like you said, the 35% of that would be 490,000.
sounds about right. Plus
So,
design costs.
plus, yes, the rest of this amendment, yeah.
so Alderwood, are you saying it's the same price, no matter which
It's-
direction you
No,
go in?
it's, well, it would cost for the construction, based on the 1.4 million, the city share would be 490,000, and the repaving that Brad talked about before would be 400,000, so
Yeah,
it's 20-something% less. It's 90,000 bucks less.
yeah.
Isn't the total share 857,000 is what the city would pay based on these numbers? Is that what you're, counting the design and all the other costs?
I didn't add in, the 490 is just
Construction.
construction cost, 35% of the total. I didn't add in
Design.
the design cost to that, which obviously, it would be good to have that before we vote on this at the next meeting.
And then Alderwood, there is an unknown element, right? I mean, because we just can't know whether there might be future funding available if we postpone the project. It'll be less than what it is now, but all I'm saying is we just
Right.
can't know. Yeah.
Um,
And we have contacted the MPO regarding whether they can raise the cost share percentage. So the total max amount of the grant that we got is 1.1 million. And the cost share is 65-35, but if they agreed that the cost share could go up as high as 70% or 75%, then we can get more of that 1.1 million, even if our
Right.
project comes in less. You know,
Right, they will occasionally adjust the percentages upwards for projects. Very, very rarely do they ever go down, because you kind of need to know what you can expect in funding. But, and typically, they don't get to carry the money over, so they're trying to spend all the money they have. And, you know, so there's an amount left that won't pay for an entire project, so we can take that to increase the percentage if it's shared. So, but there's certainly no guarantee of that happening.
Sure.
All right.
I just want to make sure I understand the years correctly. Right now, this amendment would be to finish up design in 27 or in 26?
Yeah,
26.
26.
With construction in 27?
No, construction still wouldn't be until 29.
Oh, wow.
And the 4-year cycle for the funding, 29 is the last year that funding can happen?
Every new year is another 4-year cycle. So the next TIP, Transportation Improvement Plan, would be 26 through 30.
So our current approval
Is 25 through 29.
is 25 through 29. And, for example, let's say this was delayed 1 year for the finished design, and it was designed in 27, couldn't it still be constructed in 29?
Yes.
Even if this was pushed to 28 to finish this work, couldn't it be constructed in 29?
28 would be pushing it because they like to, the DOT likes to bid their projects in late fall.
Okay.
So we would actually, the DOT would let the project in October or November of 28
Okay.
to be reconstructed in
Sure.
2029.
So is it safe to say that a 1-year delay
Yeah.
in this could keep us on track for the project, even for the money, and could allow timing to ask for an additional percentage shift higher than the 65-35?
Yeah,
Okay.
we could still design it in time.
Okay. And right now, if I read our budget document, right, this is not, it's not slated for a different year
Right.
currently. It's just indefinite off the books.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
it's done,
Yeah, just by on paper.
Yeah.
It might be in people's heads, but on paper, it's not penciled in for next year.
Right, which is why I said there was a third option when Alder Rademacher just said there are 2 options, and I said there's a third option.
Yeah.
We did originally, in discussion, take it out of the budget, because in discussions with staff, it was deemed as less of a priority, and I don't want to put words in Dan's mouth, but you know, he said that one of the reasons why this project was brought forward to begin with was because he felt pressure from the city council to go after the federal funds. And so they had to find a project that they thought was fitting to the, and that he, that, you know, that he didn't see it as high of a priority as, which isn't to say it wouldn't be nice.
Yeah.
He just didn't see it as high a priority. Is that a fair articulation of what you said?
All things considered, when we put in for the application, there were other higher priority projects, mainly stormwater.
Right.
One of those, I believe, has been bumped as well previously.
Right.
The need to resurface Nichols exists.
Right.
But the grant would cover reconstruction of the intersection. It would add the pedestrian pathways, things like that.
Right.
But if we do not proceed with reconstruction, resurfacing will have to enter the capital budget at some point
Sure.
in the next couple of years, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just one last, well, maybe two comments. I mean, I'll plead guilty to bringing it to staff's attention that, especially a few years ago, there was the fire hose of federal money was turned on for transportation.
Sure.
And I still feel like we probably, there may be other stuff that we could have applied for that we've missed out on. Some of those programs now have gotten super competitive, but, so yeah. I mean, because it's our job to figure out how to pay for the stuff too.
Right.
Not just which
Right.
one needs to be done most,
Mhm.
so.
Right. Yep.
I would, one other thing. It sounds like, there might be some thought about delaying this design into '27. And if we do that, I would hope that we have a specific amendment next time that would, we don't need a full amendment sheet, but that we're specifically saying it's going to be in the '27 capital budget. So, that's it.
Any other questions on this particular amendment item? Okay. We'll move on to the next amendment. Thank you.
Might as well stay there. Dan might as well stay.
Yeah. Dan.
Oh, he's good. Okay.
This is amendment brought forward by Alder Holmquist, and this is number 26-02, construction of Oneida Park sewer lift.
Yeah, so this
1.10.
one was really to move it. The engineering's already been done, and to move the construction. Since then, there have been some additional information I think it was important for this group just to hear, and that had to do with originally, we recently had a sewer increase of 20%. And then after proposing this, I learned more that Mark said this would require an additional 15 to the 20 that was already increased. I said, please just keep it on for discussion so people are aware of where things are at, and then we can decide what to do with the amendment.
That's correct. With where we're at right now, with their sewer utilities, to meet the revenue bond requirement, you would have to increase your rates at least 15%. We moved it back to I can't remember the exact year it's in the budget. I think it's 28. The reason why it fits the schedule of our repayment schedule, so it fits in there kind of just perfect. So there would be very little increase. It might be a little bit, 2 to 3% increase for this portion, not considered MSD issues. But put in here, it puts a little stress on the sewer utilities that would, because of the revenue bonds requirements, it would require about a 15% increase. So it would be basically at the beginning of the year, you would have a 35% increase to your sewer rates. Count of 20 that was just recently passed, it just became effective this is last month.
And on,
And that was the only reason, main reason why, is to keep, for the taxpayers to keep that off there. We just had the increase, so the reason why we moved it was because we didn't want to force another increase onto your residents.
right, so this would be the equivalent of a second increase, and we just had another one from the other lift station that we just completed on Midmore, did we not?
Correct, it's related to that.
Right, so this would be the third sewer
Winnequa.
increase on residents in how long a period, Mark?
Last time we had an increase, last month.
Yeah, but I mean, but when did the Midmore increase hit people?
Just hit them, and just this last bill, it just showed up, so.
Okay, so they got the Midmore and they
In-
got the increase because of the increase in rates from
Yeah.
the sewer, and then, so this would be the third increase in less than 6 months, really.
Oh, no, that was together at one time. Winnequa and Midmore and MSD was basically 20%. That was kind of the whole three things put together.
Okay,
That just went into effect last month. I think their bills just showed it coming out. So then you would add this, it's just because the usage is so stagnant. I mean, I don't know if we have a conservation rate on our water utilities, and it's one of those things, just like your electric bills with solar, is we're conserving the rates because you want to save money, but what ends up happening is we're not making enough revenue to cover our revenue bonds, and that's one of the side effects of these conservation rates. Just like this, like electric companies will get you, like solar saves you money, but they'll still try to find a way to get that money, but through the electric bills or service charges. It's one of those same situations.
So just in really simple terms, everybody's sewer fee, is that the word, has already gone up 20%.
Correct.
That's done.
Yeah,
And this amendment would add an additional 15%
correct.
if it were printed. Okay, thank you.
Mark, do you know on, say, a property that has a $100 average water bill, how much, like, what are we talking about in dollars that?
I mean, it's not a ton, if your water bill or sewer portion is $15 per month, it's $15 times 12 is what your annual increase would be.
No, I'm saying if your total water bill is 100, about 40.
Oh, how much is the sewer? What's
Yeah,
the sewer?
because-
Sewer is more expensive. You're going to have a higher sewer charge than the water charge.
I know, I saw that, I was surprised. I
Yeah.
thought it used to be the other way around.
It's usually 2 to 1 right now, I think it is.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know exact, but it's kind of 2 to 1.
So over half of our utility bill is sewer, is that what you're saying?
It's probably not that. I'll take a look. I don't know if it's.
Okay.
There's other charges on there too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the storm sewer and something else.
Yeah.
Could you just say a little bit about this project, Dan?
Right. So the Oneida Park lift station project consists of replacing the force main that cuts through the properties via easement. It goes on the bottom of Sumac Lagoon and daylights in a manhole in Birchhaven Circle. So replacing that, the new route would be north in the terrace of Tecumseh and connecting to a manhole at Winnequa Trail in Tecumseh. That would be the new force main route. We would like to abandon the force main that goes through the lagoon. The other half of the project would be to remove the dry can station, which about 25 feet below ground. In a dry can, we have 2 pumps that pump sewage from the wet well to the forest main. So it would eliminate the confined space entry. It would be a submersible pumping station similar to what we put in last year at Midmore and at the Winnequa station. Pretty much eliminates confined space entry for 99% of the operations. Everything can be done from above ground. So those are the 2 components of the Oneida lift station project.
Just, could I just follow up on that? I know you were, when we talked about this, at one point, you were concerned about the pipe being on the bottom of the lagoon and the type of pipe, I think.
Right. The pipe that sits on the bottom of the lagoon is a cast iron force main. It's not encased in concrete like they typically are. The only benefit I believe that exists to that is that it's not exposed to air. But cast iron is still an unprotected pipe. So depending on the depth of the lagoon, dry years, the lagoon is more shallow. Wet years, there's more water there. There's, the fear among the operators is that if this thing ever cracks or has a break, it would pretty much take down the lift station. So then we would have to truck our waste or find a different way to pump it. It's been like this pretty much forever, since that lift station has been in existence. It's taken me probably 14 years to get this one on the project list. The other two lift stations that we just reconstructed, they had a higher priority because they were the city's oldest pumping stations. I believe it was built in the late 40s for those. So we took care of those last year, and this is the next one on the list because of mainly the force main, and then as well as getting rid of the confined space entry.
Patrick?
Thanks.
Doug kind of asked the similar question that I was going to ask, but has there been any history of this leaking or seepage from this cast iron pipe?
No.
That we know of?
No.
And how old is it?
I'd have to look at the sheet. I believe, I'm thinking without looking right now, probably late 60s.
Late 60s, but cast iron pipes fail.
On the water side of things, cast iron water mains, the city has been very active in the early 2000s, replacing cast iron main because it's brittle in the ground. During the winter, the frost depth usually causes the breaks or the shifting in the earth. So the desire there is to replace those cast iron water mains. I don't believe, and I don't have anything to go by, it's just my, what I'm thinking in my head, but, the cast iron force main that sits at the bottom of Sumac Lagoon, I don't think it goes through the same scenarios as the cast iron water main does with the frost in the ground. But the fear there is boat propellers. Or anything that might drag and snag. It goes at a horizontal or a diagonal pathway across the lagoon. It's not a direct straight across. It goes on an angle. So you can't really identify where the force main is, and I don't know if you really want to identify where the force main is. But the biggest fear is at some point, someday, if it does give, it's going to be a mess. So,
thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah. Dan, did you say that the age of this station was constructed in the 60s?
That's my best
More
guess
or
right now
less,
without
yeah.
looking at paperwork. I think it was
Yeah.
the late 60s, yeah.
Yeah. It's about the time I was born. I just Googled up how long does a sewer lift station last? Typically between 15 and 25 years, depending on factors. But,
Well,
yeah.
that and if you have dedicated
Sure.
maintenance to it,
Yeah.
if you operate it according to specifications, things like that, it can last much longer.
Yeah.
If you fail to take care of things, then probably in a 15 to 20 year time frame, you're scrambling
Yeah.
to do repairs. So,
And you said you had been working to get this on the budget for how many years?
well, we've been trying to figure out the force main situation. since I arrived here in 2011. We've tried locating the forest main probably about 2015, 2016 timeframe. We had a boat out there. We tried locating it through various technologies through our the company that we use for cleaning our sewer mains. We were not successful in doing that. But you know, when you look at where the easement is and where the manhole is at daylights, you can kind of line it up, you know, eyesight it. But, you know, in the capital request sheet that was in the packet, originally that went to Public Works Committee, I think I have the year identified in there, but I don't recall
that's
offhand,
okay.
so.
Can you speak more to, did I hear you say you were searching for something from the water? Did I hear you say?
For the force main itself. They didn't have it located
Right.
where the pipe went in the water.
Not the lake. You're not talking about.
The
Yes.
lagoon.
The lagoon.
Sumac Lagoon.
So, I know this is very unlikely, but worst case scenario, what happens to,
Worst case scenario, if that forest main breaks, we shut down the pumping station and we bring in trucks to temporarily haul waste
right,
while we set up an emergency bypass system where we would pump it north via hoses on top of the ground, and then it would drop into the next gravity manhole to the north.
got it, okay. Mm.
So it's a pretty crappy situation.
I was just trying to figure out like,
Right.
yeah, like,
Thank you.
what does that even, yeah, I don't even want to imagine.
I mean, it's definitely not, it would not be a good situation to be in, but there are a lot of smart people out there
Sure.
that have done stuff like this
Right.
before, where if it happened within a matter of hours, my guess is we could have an emergency system up and running. You know, it's an emergency phone call to line up a couple tanker trucks while we get the pumping system figured out, but,
And what would be the first sign that something had gone wrong? Would a homeowner notice something? Would there be an alarm that goes off somewhere on a detection system? Or people aren't going to get junk in their house?
no, the first sign is going to be visual evidence in Sumac Lagoon. You're going to see things
Okay.
come to the surface.
So it's going to go into the water,
Yeah.
It'll look like
the
a giant
lake.
porta potty.
Yeah, yeah. So it's going to pollute the lagoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be the first indication.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions on this one? I just want to point out that they, unlike the previous amendment, I was not at all suggesting that this gets canceled, only that it gets,
Absolutely.
so we actually did have water, we did have cast iron main breaks in other parts, not sewer, but other,
Yeah.
water, that, like Tony Watt, it's also been on loss for a lifetime, so. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Next one is Southtown Engineering, amendment number 26-03.
Yeah, and I apologize, Mark, I haven't seen my email, and I know some of this was in the email, and this had to do with the request to add this back in and to have it added to the TIF 15 and 16, if I have the numbers correctly, but I think there was some additional information. I just don't remember what was in that email.
So basically, we had moved this to the 2027. One, because if you do it in 26, we have to use GEO. If we move back to 27, there's a good chance we'll use TIF funding on this. we'd like to get a better feel what's going on in Topgolf and Southtown to kind of see what the increment is, so we know how much we can pay for it with their TIF. But right now, if you don't, we have no money coming in right now for those two TIFs. I mean, there eventually is a project going in. We'd have to use general fund if we're going to do it in '26, general obligation.
Wouldn't we be able to have a donor TIF?
There's not a donor,
In the meantime,
we don't have a donor district set up. The two donor districts we do have set up, they can only be used on two specific TIFs. So you'd have to do a brand-new donor district, and right now we don't have increment from another donor to donate over there.
what about the one where the triangle, or the current, wouldn't that
That's actually getting donated too.
still?
So we're not, so 8 is donating, Traceland's actually donates to the current.
And is there enough in 8 to also go into 14, 15?
They cannot go to 14. You'd have to do.
You would have to set up a new one, but
You would have to do a whole, for 8 to go to those two TIFs, you'd have to do a joint review board to move it to that one. And it would put a lot more stress on 9, so I wouldn't recommend it for that purposes.
and by the time you would have to go through the work to get the joint review committee, all of that, you're talking 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even recommend it because it's needed more in the other TIF. That's why there's a donor district set up.
Okay.
If I could, I'd like to
Yeah.
add. For the city administrator, any conversations like we just had with Scott last week?
I got to
All
listen
that
to
would have
that
to be
too.
put
you
on
know.
hold. Because the funding that we had tentatively scheduled for next year would be for design. Right now, we're still in preliminary design, and we're still fact-finding, and we're still trying to figure things out with the DOT, so come December 31st, we won't be able to proceed with anything in 2026, so,
Right.
unless there's a different funding stream to carry on.
Right.
So,
I was privy to that part of that conversation, and I have to say, you guys, it was an education to listen to. I mean, they had, I believe Doug was on the conversation as well. So we had Dan, Doug, and Neil all listening for an hour and a half, maybe?
About, right.
An hour and a half.
And our consultants, Strand.
And our consultants with WDOT, and who else was on the line besides WDOT?
Most just there are 2 or 3 DOT
Yeah.
representatives.
And it was
essentially,
all a discussion over jurisdiction, right?
Correct.
And who's responsible for what, and who's responsible for what financially, and who has what paperwork, and an hour and a half. An hour and a half.
So,
Yeah.
So the outcome of that conversation affects this project in what way?
Significant ways.
I mean, essentially, it's determining if this is our project or if this is DOT's
Oh.
project. I mean, maybe a vast oversimplification.
No, that's what I'm
but
after.
I think that's I think that's
good.
really what we're looking at in
Yeah,
terms
just
of
the summary.
how far down does DOT's
Sure.
jurisdiction go, and where does the city's begin?
Okay.
Right,
There's definitely some difference of opinion and
right.
So the answer
lack
to
of
that
lack
is
of documentation that we're trying to remedy at
Okay.
this point.
Right, we're trying to sell from the Beltline ramps to Royal Avenue,
Right,
but south of Royal Avenue is definitely the city's project.
Sure.
And we also have a resurfacing component of Royal Avenue that fronts Speedway and Walmart and then goes behind Walmart that we
Right.
have included with this project, in addition to some modifications to the roundabout, so.
right.
Right.
So Dan, I think what you're saying is it's sufficiently confusing at the moment that to invest further in design when we don't know who's responsible probably be worth putting off.
I guess what I'm saying is that without funding to carry on with design in 2026, any conversations that we have that involve our engineer, we won't have a way to pay for their participation. So right now, Strand is our engineer for preliminary design.
Right.
John and Josh were on the call They've been doing the design and fact-finding to date.
Right.
So once the preliminary design funding that we have allocated for this year runs out at the end of the year,
Right.
this project would in essence be put on hold throughout 2026 until 2027 if we get funding back for their assistance to continue helping us figure this out.
Unless we came for a budget amendment.
Right.
Right.
I mean, we could do a quick, if in fact things got squared away, so we knew who was responsible for what and who was going to do what, then we could come back for a quick amendment to get Josh back up and what, right?
Yeah, I think the only concern, from my perspective, Mayor, is certainly the work we're coordinating with the landowner of a couple of the larger properties in there that have a kind of a vested interest in seeing some of the improvements that are being discussed here that could affect their lease negotiations if there's not a decision made on this fairly quickly. So I just want to just put that out, that if we do hold off and do it, we want to be able to have the ability to move fairly quickly to get some design funds back in place to move on this if we had to.
So,
Okay.
so what would be needed in order for us to meet that desired outcome that you just described?
I think we just have to have an updated design estimate from John at the time. If we figure out exactly what we're designing for and how far and how fast we need to go,
Right.
we'd probably be just requesting an updated.
But as far as the
Estimate.
budget and the decision in front of the council goes, what would be needed to?
It'd just be a capital budget amendment like we would
Amendment.
bring forward, just like we have done on
Okay.
other projects.
Got it. Okay.
Specifically for that item you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
The rest of the design would be put on hold until we get funding back, probably for 2027.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions on this one?
So that funding, well, never mind. That's okay.
Next one is amendment number 2604, put forth by Alder Holmquist.
Yeah, and this had to do with, this is the plow truck and leaf vac replacement, and Dan can probably speak better to it than I can, but in essence, it's one truck that eventually can replace two trucks, which goes to my overall goal for the long term, which has been to reduce down the fleet size of city vehicles overall. And I believe the replacement schedule, I think, also hits the sweet spot of being able to unload our fleet when we're actually able to recoup some dollars. And I think if we miss that sweet spot, our ability to recoup the dollars just decreases when it becomes less valuable to the next user. And so that is why I'm bringing it forward at this point. I was trying to look to see when it got moved to, because I believe it got moved. Dan, do you know?
We didn't put it in a year.
Okay, it just got,
I think we were looking at, also with that one, is there was some, we were talking about it, some answered questions, are we going to be responsible for the dumpsters? Is that something we have to pay for by dumpsters? If you only have one truck, you got four things relied upon that. What happens if that one truck goes down? Do we have to go rent something? I mean, there was a lot of unanswered questions. Is it less efficient too? Because now, instead of a third-party company taking that stuff and dumping it, now our crew has to go do that. So we were already challenged before with our efficiencies with our crew. Now it's added extra time. So I think it's one of those things we're for, is just kind of vetting those little things until we got some understanding of those type of costs. And what the true savings was that we're saying it's the operating reduction. Is it just getting rid of Royal? Is it, that contract is, what that actual number was?
if I remember correctly, over a period of time, the proposal, at least at the public works level, was this was the first kind of phase of a longer vision, eventually being able to replace, I believe, 3 vehicles into 2 with the hook system to be able to do a variety of tasks and have some sense of that redundancy. But I think you're absolutely right. Like the first time, you only have
Right,
one
yeah,
item.
right.
Much like
It's your pilot,
Yeah.
sort of, yeah.
You need to do that at some point, so. That was my reasoning for adding it back in.
Yeah, Doug.
I know in the notes, the page where we have the list of all the things that got removed, it does indicate move to future years, but as Brian or somebody pointed out, it's not in any budget, which, I think whatever we do with this, I think it would be a really good idea for us to, once we've passed this budget and get into even February or March of next year, or some point, we ought to come back and look at the out years of the capital plan, because like we have there's several of them that got moved to future years that are beyond the end of this five-year plan. But, you know, they were good enough that the department head proposed it and the committee approved it, and now it's just, you know, kind of disappearing. So if you came along and looked at the five-year plan, you wouldn't have any idea that there was ever a discussion about a need for a plow truck and leaf vac replacement. So, and I guess maybe for this specific one, you know, maybe we do want to put it in a specific year, or
Yeah, that's my fault. I put that in there like that, so it wasn't the mayor's. I put it in just because I figured, I was also kind of looking at, you know, the last meeting at the committee of the whole, the mayor also talked about, you know, how we're evaluating some of these equipments, and maybe looking at that policy again. So I thought maybe that whole thing would you kind of look at that whole thing as one, you know, like maybe we change the policy. Because a lot of the things you look at, the policy is the years, you know, is it the reliability, and what is it, you know, and just the way we're looking at it, maybe that changes how we want to put them in the five-year plan, if we look at the policy, if that changes. So that's my fault for not putting them in a certain year, not the mayor's.
okay. Well, you know, I'll hold that for when we get, I have a couple of equipment amendments myself.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, any other questions? I would just say too, Dan, I'm wondering, and I mean, as you know, I'm in favor of this approach. It's one of the things you talked to me about early on before you even got to, so again, not anti this approach at all. It was just recognizing that in order to really make this approach effective, we would have to have multiple attachments for the hook in order to be using it the way you want to use it, right?
That's correct.
And so we're talking about not only the chassis and the hook, but also all the attachments. And using that chassis year-round as opposed to having multiple seasonal things. So while we would shed conceivably one vehicle by having a hook truck, because we're using that hook truck year-round instead of the truck that we just shed, which is only seasonal, one could argue that it's kind of 6 of one, half of the other, somewhat, because, you know, it's just like you're using a seasonal vehicle, a chassis seasonally versus a chassis year-round, which is I would assume, the most expensive part. But I just thought that out there. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I'm just saying I'm not sure. But again, I don't disagree with the approach. Just like any other, you're making tough choices. I know we all are. Any other questions on this one?
Mayor, could I just throw one comment? I think the one issue too that we're dealing with on certainly some of our other larger equipment, particularly the chassis, and Director Stefani, correct if I'm wrong, is certainly the lead time on ordering some of these larger pieces of equipment, the actual trucks. So I think this may help alleviate some of that concern by focusing on just kind of ordering the attachments and kind of the additional equipment, maybe a little bit, hopefully a shorter time frame than having to wait on the full truck chassis all the time going forward. Would that be a fair statement? Dan, I don't know if it is or not.
I think the attachments are probably easier
Yeah.
to obtain than the chassis.
Mhm.
But we're about 2.5 years out from the plow truck that we ordered in November of '23.
It's amazing.
And we believe we're going to get that in the early part of '26. So, you know, if it isn't the desire to proceed with this type of multi-purpose truck system, we still have two large and expensive vehicles that are due for replacement. So if we're going to abandon this approach, we still need to address those two other trucks.
Right.
And if it takes about 2.5 years to place the order and receive them, the longer we delay this, the longer it's going to be before we get equipment to replace the ones we currently have. Can I continue to speak? I was not aware of any unanswered questions regarding this topic. I explained everything in full detail to the Public Works Committee and the efficiencies of the system, as well as to the mayor and the city administrator when we met prior to Committee of the Whole. So the full council has not been made aware of the efficiencies of this type of system. If we do commit to going to a multi-purpose truck, until we can get a second truck that can, where we have two chassis that can do the multi-purpose function, the hook function, we will have to keep, like the Leaf Vac, we will have to keep that as a backup until we get a second truck. Efficiencies that can be gained, definitely, one of them is in the operating budget with our yard waste dumpsters. I did explain that from the very beginning, that the money we save there, we can use that to buy our own dumpsters. If in that time frame where we have the multi-purpose truck, the hook truck, and we replace our own dumpsters with our crew, if we have a truck breakdown, we have a great relationship with Pelletieri, who currently pulls those dumpsters right now. We have 2 contracts with them right now. I'm sure we could have a backup plan in place with Pelletieri should that truck go down. Other efficiencies, like the mayor indicated before, it has a V-box spreader, snowplow attachments for winter use. Come summertime, it'll be transporting yard waste dumpsters. We have the leaf collection box that would go on the back of it. That's a 23 cubic yard box. And when the time comes to when our sewer vac truck, when we need to move on from that, the fourth attachment is buying the vac equipment to do the potholing and cleaning. So this truck, this chassis, is a true year-round chassis. Right now, the plow trucks sit in the garage. They're active from December through March or April. Then they're parked. The leaf trucks are active from October through November and in the month of April, and then they're parked. So transitioning to a multi-purpose truck like this is a commitment. It's a long-term vision. When we can get 2 chassis here, we are going to see and experience efficiencies in our system, in our operation. We're going to save money. It's going to take a little bit up front to get there, but if you make that commitment, you're saving money right off the bat by not having to buy 2 chassis with upfit equipment. You have 1 chassis with attachments. So there's efficiencies to be gained right from the start. And if the commitment is there, we will continue to experience those efficiencies as we build our second truck. So, thank you.
Dan, can I just, Patrick, go for it.
Dan, the seasonal chassis sitting for half the year. I know a little bit about vehicle maintenance. So just having chassis sit for that long, you
That's
can
not-
develop issues
Right.
just from the vehicle sitting.
Correct. Right.
So if the vehicle is in continual use, lubrication, issues with
Mhm.
transmissions, all that sort of, all that stuff that would potentially just lot rot, if you will.
Right.
Continues to be maintained also.
Right.
So when you talk about efficiency, one could argue that there's some efficiencies built into that program based on just being continually used.
I do agree with that. I mean, I guess either way, if the truck is going to be parked, you're going to have issues that come up that need to be maintained just because, like you said, lot rot. When you do use the vehicle, you're going to have maintenance items like oil changes, fluid changes, tire replacement, things of that nature. Where that trade-off is, we don't really know because we don't have a system like that.
Sure.
So.
Thank you.
I'll just say, I wasn't planning on abandoning anything.
Right, no, yeah.
Just postponing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was also going to ask about the problems with letting a vehicle sit. The other thing, I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly, and for anyone that is watching or reading minutes. So one truck handles snow plowing, leaf collection, moving dumpsters, and then also, and that's what I remembered, and I forgot about the sewer component. So when you say that we've got 2 trucks that need to be replaced anyway, in my mind I was thinking snowplow, leaf collection truck.
Correct.
But then might we also have a third sewer-related truck or piece of equipment that this one hook
Right.
truck could
Right.
avoid replacement on that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the large truck that we use to clean our storm catch basins and our
Right.
storm boxes.
Right.
We use it for what's called potholing.
Yeah.
To identify underground infrastructure. So when the time comes to replace that truck, I believe that price tag is somewhere around $320,000 right now. If we have this type of system, then you just buy the box. You buy the hook component because you already have the chassis. So probably half the cost, So, and, the sewer vac truck that we have, we invest a lot of maintenance dollars in it. We bought it used. When it's up and running, it's a great truck. When it's broke, it requires some dollars to get it back up and running. But, it's nice to have because we use it all the time with cleaning stormwater infrastructure and exposing underground infrastructure. So that component would get used just as much as the current truck does.
Dan, is there a danger, I don't know that this came up in the Public Works Committee meeting, is there a danger of, so to speak, putting all your eggs in one basket? Like, let's say that, we're using this truck to collect leaves
Yeah.
this time of year, and then something is necessary over here with sewer, and now we take one truck out of leaf rotation, but.
Well, when you get 2 trucks, then you have
Right.
all your eggs in 2 baskets.
Right, exactly.
So.
Yeah. So in the beginning,
In the
this is
beginning,
highest risk part of the whole.
Well, in the beginning, we would keep that leaf truck.
Sure. Right.
And keep it as backup, which we did previously. When we bought the 2 new trucks that we have, we did keep one of the old trucks until we were up and running with the new ones, and then we went to auction with it. I would recommend that, if we go this route, then we do keep a leaf truck as a backup, in essence,
Right.
having 4 in case, the hook truck breaks down, then you can at
Right.
least send the old truck back out. Keep 3 on the road, in essence.
And as we keep that old truck around, it's aging. It's
Correct.
becoming less valuable at auction. So, yeah.
I had one question. What, do you know if other municipalities are using this approach?
Verona is the only one that I'm aware of locally. Actually, the guy that planted the seed within our brains here is not working at Verona. So it's interesting how, we started gathering data on this kind of program about 3 years ago. We finally got it into the system. But the person who got us going on this is in Verona, and they now use the hook trucks over there.
Okay.
So where we got the price quotes from, I'm sure we could get other municipality names that that use the hook truck as well. So, for these other components
Right.
other than dumpsters.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on this one? Okay. That takes us to amendment number 26-05. Brought forth by Alder Wood.
Yeah, so this would put the bridge and street maintenance money back up to 300,000. Dan, could you talk a little bit what you use that money for?
That money we use for our annual chip seal program and our annual resurfacing program. Most years we either do a chip seal and then the next year we do mill and overlay, a resurfacing program. Lately we've been able to do a little bit of both with that money. I work on the list in the off season. I do the estimates based on the previous year's bid prices. So when I calculate, based on the funding we have, and I calculate the amount of roads to be done, I try to use that money the best way we can. We've had really good bid environments lately with the chip seal and the mill and overlay. In the past 2 years, we've added some streets to the program within the state statutes that we can add. So typically in the past, we've asked for about 300,000 to complete that annual maintenance. So when we do chip sealing, it also involves crack sealing. We do some infrared patching prior to the chip seal going down. So when we do chip seal, we average probably about 13 streets that we can do. When we do mill and overlay, a mill and overlay uses up the money faster, depending on the length of the road. If you decide to do 1.5 resurfacing or 2-inch resurfacing, that's where the uncertainty really comes in, is with the mill and overlay. So if we bump down to 200,000, then we get less work done. But if we maintain the current funding level, I have a list of roads. I've got half the city road rated right now. I still have about half the streets to do yet. I've got a decent list next year on the list for mill and overlay, but it could change based on what else I find this year for road rating. So, but
Okay. Yeah, basically the reason I put this amendment is to me, this is like preventive maintenance. The core program to do that of the streets, which, streets are one of the main functions of local government. I did look back at what we spent on this item, what had been budgeted for it in the past, and adjusting for inflation, going back to 2014, it's about 331,000 that has been in this budget line. So I understand the desire, to hold down the borrowing. I just think this is a bad place to do it. So.
Right. Mark, do you want to speak to that?
Well, I think like you said, we've in the past sometimes don't even use up the full budget. We have cut it before. Like this year, they bought a message board sign out of that account. So there's, other things that get used out of that account too. I get it. But I think we've done 200,000 before and still maintained the streets. and if you're looking at a one-year dip and then back up to the same number next year at the 300,000 level.
I know, right. And you know that this is one of the, mayors often do that, that my number often goes
Yeah.
up and down.
Yeah.
And, yeah, sure, you can do it for a year, yeah. But it's, to me, it's just a bad place to cut, like I said, so.
Any other questions on this one? Okay, move to the next one. Item number 2606, the Sherry, Colorado.
Sure. So this, I mean, I propose it in part because it's one of those that has moved to future years, but there's no year associated with it. So,
Yeah, for this one, we kind of moved this one off altogether. I mean, I further down the list, this is the second year in a row. Last year, Mary cut this too during the thing,
Right.
during the budget process. And we kind of looked at this one, you know, has very low miles on it. You know, last year to this year, we only used 445 miles. You know, we're averaging, what, 30 some miles per month. So we're not using a lot. The maintenance level was basically, you know, 3,300 since 2012, so you're talking about $254 per year. Its reliability has no issues, so it's one of those things you're looking like, well, there's barely any miles on it. You know it's old, it's older. But with all those things, with a great mechanic, that thing can last, you know, a lot longer too. So that was kind of the main, you know, thoughts behind that one for moving that.
Yeah.
Mark, how old is the current vehicle you just talked about?
I think it's 2012.
2012, okay.
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 Oh, I did want to, I think this one did score well enough on the maintenance, on the rating, right,
Has a points rating of 25, qualifies for replacement according to our adopted model.
Right. And I know there are some concerns with that, but I think, you know, right now, staff is using that. That's what they've been told. In fact, we approved it as the way that they're supposed to evaluate
Correct.
equipment. I don't remember when, but if we want them to evaluate it in some other way or change that, then we need to do that so they know what we're expecting. And that's kind of the main reason I wanted to bring this forward.
I wasn't suggesting that they should change the rate. I'm suggesting we should change the rating, but I don't, because I think that the rating system is over a decade old, actually, and, but I don't know that I wasn't saying there was anything wrong with the points that were put on the sheet.
Right.
I mean, I
Oh, I see.
understand
Yeah,
that
okay. Yes.
it's a chicken or the egg thing,
Right.
right?
That's all I have on
I
that.
just have a quick question.
Sorry, Brian.
Dan, can you speak to the use of this vehicle? And my question, the underpinning question to it is, could that use be done using a different vehicle that we already have in the fleet? Or could that use be reimbursement for a personally used vehicle?
This truck is assigned to Brad. He is pretty much out in the field every day, observing whether it be development projects or our capital projects. This started out as the supervisor's truck when it was first purchased. It then went to the right-of-way permit coordinator. And then once he got his new truck, it went to Brad. For Brad, he's been using hand-me-downs from the police department over the years. So this vehicle is on its third person or third duty, if you will. I don't believe we would want Brad to use his personal vehicle. He has a car. He's on construction site with this vehicle. He's driving on roads for reconstruction where you don't want to take your personal vehicle. And you know, are there other vehicles? You know, we could go down to the shop and whatever's in the shop, he could hop in and drive, but is it the most appropriate vehicle to be taking out on a daily basis like that? It could be a dump truck, you know, one of our 1-tons. When our part-timers are not here in summer, there could be a pickup truck that would otherwise be used for one of our part-timers. So, you know, I mean, if that's the way you want to look at it, yeah, there's always a vehicle down there that he could hop into, but, you know, he also has a truck full of gear, so he'd constantly be transitioning his gear to whatever vehicle he would be using for the day. So,
And Mark, you might know the answer to this, if not Jerry does. Will we replace the brush truck? Did the old brush truck already get sold at auction, or is that something?
Yeah, so, there's another one.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't holding on to a
There's one
backup
truck
brush
left.
truck.
Car 3. Oh.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one? Takes us to the Public Works loader, number 2607. Brought forth by Alder Wood.
Right. Again, this is one that was, you know, moved to future years without a year being designated, so I would hope by the time we pass the budget, we have a better idea of when it might be replaced, if it's not going to be in this budget. I mean, I think the materials speak for itself in terms of the age of a heavy-duty front loader. So I don't know if there's more behind this, why this was taken out, or?
Kind of the same process again. This is the third time it's been taken out. Once by, last year by Mayor O'Connor. I don't remember who the other mayor at the time, it may have been married too at the same time. It's kind of the third thing, kind of taking a look at this, you know, we trust the mechanic. You know, mechanic, when you look at the reliability, as number one, maintenance costs from 2012 for heavy, machinery, it's 16,000 over, 13 years, or bought in 2012, so over, 13 years, it's fairly low. And then, I don't know if that includes the new tires at $10,000 back in the day. Kind of looking at that and just kind of the average, the hours out per year, like, I was just kind of looking, I can't remember. But also, we kind of did a little bit of research on this one too, what the average, if we Google it, doesn't mean that's the best information, but, they say like high use is 10,000 hours, you start looking at, a little bit like 7,000 to 8,000 hours, you start kind of looking at that, so.
Right.
And then you're averaging about 300 some hours per year since 2012. I had an exact number, 353 hours per year. So we're kind of looking at that same thing. We also kind of talked about a little bit, not so much with Dan, but Dan was in there, maybe looking at used vehicles for these type of things with loaders. I know kind of Neil talked about that too, with like getting warranties on these, the full warranties that they would lower the costs. So some of the things we kind of talked about with that, and kind of looking at, it's my fault again for not putting it into a certain year, but that was kind of the reason behind that.
Yeah, I would just add to what Mark said, just on the review front and with loaders, all different brands, including John Deere. What I got was the life expectancy was 10 to 15,000 in one review. Another one it was 10 to 20,000, but it was but they can last beyond 20,000. Another one it was 10,000 hours at a minimum, but it can go 25,000 hours. And another one it was 8,000 as a minimum, 15,000 on the engine. So again, the 5,000 hours seemed lower.
I guess you can look at it one of two ways, but to me, Dan and the Public Works Committee keep saying we need to do this, and then the mayor and the council takes it out. To me, I'm more concerned that we're waiting too long to do it, so I guess I'd like to hear some from Dan about why he put it in this year, or why he keeps, putting it in.
So respectfully, it's very easy to pick and choose a reason why you want to keep a piece of equipment. There's a reason why there's a national APWA points rating system to rank fleet equipment. There's several components that go into establishing the points total. The mechanic does the inspection, and he completes the rating each year before we bring it to the Public Works Committee. So there's far more that goes into it than simply looking at a piece of equipment and saying it looks good, or saying there's low miles on it, or we didn't invest a lot of maintenance dollars. When you have the amount of vehicles and equipment that we have, you have to have a replacement program in place. And that was one of the first things the Public Works Committee asked me to do when I arrived here in 2011, and City Council at the time, is to come up with an equipment replacement program. And we did that based on the national model. So I don't know what was used prior to me arriving here in 2011, but this system is established nationwide, and it has several criteria to come up with that points total. So if you say it looks good, if you say it has low miles, we can keep it. At some point, if you use that thought process for all of the equipment we have, there's going to come a point in time where we have all this old equipment, and we're going to have a need to replace it all at one time. How do we do that? So we have this points rating system based on the national model. There's a very sweet spot for a time to buy new equipment and then send your current equipment to auction. We try to time that, appropriately when we bring items like this to the Public Works Committee and City Council. So just arbitrarily saying it looks good, or we have new tires so we should keep it, we can't evaluate equipment that way. We're going to get ourselves into a bind if we evaluate our equipment that way. So the reason why this keeps coming before you is because yes, it still does hold value. We would get good dollar for it at the auction, but you're going to enter that, you're going to bypass or go beyond that sweet spot before you start investing a lot of money in maintaining it versus what you could get at auction. And you want to time that right. And that's what we try to do with the equipment that we bring to you, is to hit that sweet spot. The loader has a rating of 35. Age goes into it, miles goes into it, hours, the type of service, the condition of it, the maintenance cost, the reliability, all those are factors in establishing that score. If we didn't think that it was time to replace it, I wouldn't bring it to you. If it didn't meet the criteria of the City Council approved points rating system, I wouldn't bring it to you. The reason why I keep bringing it forward is because it keeps meeting the points rating on the system we adopted. So if there's something else that you want me to do, let me know and we can come up with a different system. But until then, this is what we have.
I will say I went to a conference just recently, and this whole thing with vehicles, it's a common thing. We had a conversation with it was one of the finance directors' conference, and we had some alders come in, talk about these various issues. It's no different than here than anywhere else. They were talking about police cars usually should have a 3-year rotation of their patrols. They're getting 5 years out of them. So this is not uncommon. It's not just Monona. It's very common throughout the state right now.
Right, I mean, you were saying to me that at that conference, everybody was saying they're having to stretch their vehicles a lot longer than they used
Yeah.
to, because it's
Yes.
just gotten cost prohibitive, just.
Nationally,
reality.
it's a problem nationally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Patrick?
Just, how many hours are on the vehicle right now? I can't.
5,300
Oh, that's where it is.
as of
Okay.
midsummer.
5,000.
Yeah.
Just, could I throw one
Yep.
thing in there? And it would certainly point out that when we had discussions on this major equipment and other pieces of equipment, I think we talked about, really for not only for Public Works, but for any department, the fact of, if it doesn't get replaced, and there isn't a subsequent, there's always the possibility of increased maintenance costs by doing that. And I think everybody acknowledged that, and the understanding is that certainly if a piece of equipment, if something like this breaks down, it's probably not going to be a minor expense for repair. We'll probably need some sort of budget amendment and emergency repair to come back to get that fixed. If it's really that awful, certainly it could come back with something even to, if there was a temporary lease, or if there's even got a good opportunity to buy equipment, that still would have to deal with that again through the budget amendment process. So I think we're making sure that we had that understanding that certainly if we don't stick to this, at some point, we probably are going to have to face the situation where something could happen. And if it does happen, we will have to go through a significant expense, either through fund balance or through some sort of other emergency action at some point. Again, you take a risk either way. I think in terms of the more you push equipment, obviously the likelihood of something like that happening continues to get higher. But if there's also the fear that if we'd lose the value by not replacing it too soon, and basically spending more money than we needed to, because it would have had extra useful life on the equipment that we didn't take advantage of. So either way, there is a cost that is associated with doing this. Certainly with larger pieces of equipment this way, I think we just, as long as we're all eyes wide open, that whichever way you go, there's going to be the chance that you leave some money on the table at some point. So obviously, I think, counting on staff and having a methodology to kind of evaluate that is critical. Certainly making sure we can maximize the dollars of the investments that we've got is certainly what we want to do. But I think we do maybe need to take a look at that. If I agree with the director that we have that system in place to evaluate that. If we want to do something different, we need to talk about that, because then staff will follow it accordingly if that's really what we want to do. So it'll save the time and energy if it's okay. If it's supposed to be 3 years, we want to get 4. I mean, so let's just set that goal in terms of how we do it. When we can adjust our maintenance budgets and things accordingly to try to do some of those things. So I do think that taking a look at that, it is a proven methodology. Certainly, I'm familiar with the APWA on that. It is a matter of, again, I think Mayor, you're not necessarily questioning the methodology, but it is the desire, obviously, from a financial constraint standpoint, to try to maximize that. That is causing us to try to push on those standards a little bit. Not necessarily doubting the validity of the methodology. It's just trying to squeeze a little bit more money out of the investment that we've already made. But I think, again, it's just having the understanding that if there could end up being additional maintenance costs that we don't budget for. There could be additional emergency repairs, other things that may have to come back. We just may have to come back at some point and address that if and when that happens.
We did with the referendum, did increase our building repair accounts and vehicle repair accounts. So there was adjustments made from the referendum budgets, and we put that as part of the referendum. I think we do have like one vehicle right now that's kind of a lemon that is in the shop all the time, which is going to replace it next year. It's just taking forever to get here, is the engine and the fire department. So that does happen, but we are replacing that engine too.
Right. Yeah, can you tell me, just in terms of like this vehicle, I know in the original write-up on the vehicle, you had said that I think you said that it had been in the shop like once or twice a year?
The loader?
Yeah.
The last big investment we had in it was the first time it was taken out of the capital budget it was tires. It was $10,000 for tires.
Yeah, I'm not debating the maintenance cost. What I was just, I thought you had said maybe a couple of times a year that it was down for some reason.
Routine maintenance.
Routine maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it didn't, okay. So I just was wondering if it was routine maintenance, that's different. If you, I mean, I was just wondering, like, for instance, if you were saying it was down and out a couple of times a year in terms of something broke on it, I was going to ask, you know, when it's down and out, has it been out for like 2 weeks or has it been out for a day? I mean, my car's over at Monona Motors twice a year. I don't have a problem with it. You know,
No.
like 2 days out of the year,
No, to
I
my
don't have my
knowledge.
car. You know, it's not gone for weeks. So,
To my knowledge, this has
Yeah.
not been taken out of service for
Okay.
a major
Okay.
component, just preventive maintenance.
just preventive maintenance.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you.
That's why we want to buy another John Deere. They're
Yeah,
reliable.
yeah.
Are you able to repair your own John Deere? I just popped into my head. I know that's a thing.
Our mechanic is very talented and experienced. He will do everything he can. I mean, this vehicle's long out of its warranty period, so he can do probably most repairs that are needed on it.
I guess where I'm, sorry to interrupt, I guess where I'm going is just the lawsuits with John Deere about the right to repair and how they don't allow farmers to repair their own tractors. I don't know if that's the same with a vehicle like this.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Although now that we've just had a discussion about it, maybe.
Hopefully they're not listening, yeah, exactly.
They're listening.
Well, I think in terms of, it's pretty specifically to the warranty period.
Yeah.
I think it's
Right.
really the primary.
Once it's out of
cause that,
warranty,
yeah.
it's,
Okay.
yeah.
But I would certainly take the advantage of giving some kudos to our maintenance
Yeah, totally.
crews,
Sure.
because they do some pretty amazing work with the diversity of vehicles that they have to work on. And,
Right.
and it's getting harder and harder to work on those vehicles because of the technology and things becoming more electronic. And
Yeah.
so we've been blessed for a long time, I think, with the ability to take care of a lot of things in-house.
Right.
And that may or may not be coming to an end sooner or later.
And
just because
that's
the
all
technology's
Ron.
changing.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
Ron. He's very good, and he can fabricate, he can modify, he can fix. I mean, you pretty much, if you have
Yeah.
something you want to do, he can do it. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else on the loader? Okay, the next one is Park Trees, number 26-08,
Yeah.
brought forth by Alder Woods.
I'll just kind of speak of that. if that's
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
So the change in the park funding from other revenues to geo debt was 15,000, but we also taken 5,000 out because we talked about last time about taking them down is really an operating cost. So that's why it's gone from 15 down to 10. So that's the reason why that number is being changed. But the other portion is the other revenues, changed from other revenues to geo debt is the other portion of it, so.
I would like to add, Alderwood, can you explain why you were not in favor of the original funding mechanism?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think park trees, again, not quite as high as streets, but the replacement of them ought not to be subject to donation funds. But it should be something that we're going to guarantee that we're going to spend a certain amount of money on every year. And I just didn't feel like this was one that was appropriate to be coming. I'm trying to find the exact wording here. Urban Tree Program or NPR donated funds. So,
NPR, yeah. So, when we went to donated funds, it was because we've had just under $19,000 sitting that was specifically donated for trees, planting of trees on public property.
Mm-hmm.
That's been sitting in our budget for Mark, 4 years, 5 years?
About 4 years, I think.
5 years, something,
Yeah,
yeah.
4 to 5.
That's just been sitting there, not being used by either Parks or Public Works. And we know that Jake also has his own Parks and Rec donation, again, for planting of trees in the parks. And so we felt confident that the combination of those two more than covered Jake's planting that he requested for this year and Dan's planting that he requested for this year.
So the
that's why-
urban tree fund was set up for this purpose. Was it?
Correct.
I mean,
It was set up, correct,
yeah,
and the money's just been sitting there.
yeah. We just, money has gone in, but it hasn't, there's been no withdrawal.
Right.
Although we plan to one day withdraw.
But
it.
I guess my response to that would be, I don't know that when people donated to those funds, that they intended, like, basically what we're doing is saying, well, we would do this every year because we have this money in there every year. We're gonna use your donated money. We're not gonna buy more trees. We're gonna substitute your money. And I don't know that people would give money, for those programs, if that was, I wouldn't think that would be their intent.
I gave money to the program and I set up the program with Brian Gatto, so that what the intent was not to say that the donations were going to have us do more than at the time.
Okay, I guess I'm not that familiar with the program. Maybe
Yeah.
Neil or
I
somebody
think
could
there's
send me
a,
a copy
there's
of
a, I think there's a page on the city website, the
Okay.
Urban Forestry Fund.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but I do, Alderwood, I do appreciate
Yeah.
where you're coming
So do
from,
I.
like,
So do I.
that, this is the job of a government to, like, pay for trees. Yeah, I get it.
Right. So I think I'm done with amendments, right?
Then the next one.
The next one is just
sorry?
okay, talk about the next one, I'll just speak
Yeah.
for you. So this is the library office lights. As you remember, there was 4 rooms that were being done, broke up in 2 sections. Brad here at the last meeting talked about, committee of the whole, talked about they're going to do 2 of the rooms in 2025. So this is just adjusting for that, taking the 9,000 out and leaving the 20,000 in there to remaining to do the second part of the project. So we're reducing it by the $9,000, and the other portion will be done in 2025 and the other in 26.
All right. I do believe that covers all the amendments. Any other questions? Okay. We'll get back to the agenda. Again, this is first read between now and the next meeting when we will be voting on each of these amendments and the budget as a whole. Feel free to reach out to the staff for additional information, or for, or for discussion with me as well. Feel free to reach out. That's your responsibility, and we'll plan on voting on it at the next meeting. Okay. That takes us to, thank you, staff. By the way, I just want to say thank you too, because Mark did a great financial report tonight, and I know you guys are totally on target with your budgets this year too, so much appreciated. That takes us to new business. 2A, consideration of resolution 25-10.
2B, Mayor, we're on 2B. We
Sorry?
already did CIP, we're on 2B.
Sorry.
Yep.
2B, consideration of ordinance 1025-798, amending section 103.3 of the Monona Code of Ordinances to remove health inspector duties from the building inspector, put forth by the city administrator.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. This is simply a kind of a correction, essentially more of an administrative correction to the existing ordinance. Right now, there is a line that refers to our building inspector as acting as the health inspector for the city. That is not in fact the case, for several reasons. One is we are actually covered in part of, we don't have our own health department, therefore we really don't have a need for a health director. We are also covered by, obviously, Madison-Dane County Public Health. We are as part of their jurisdiction. And then the third element was there are actually statutory requirements that if you have a health inspector, that they have to meet a certain type of qualification in order to be that person, which our person does not have. So staff is simply recommending removing that aspect from the ordinance.
Yeah, Patrick.
Didn't we have an issue, like, with some confusion because of this
We did.
recently with a fire?
We did, in fact, we
That's
did
right.
already, exactly.
That's
So
right.
that is kind of what brought it to our attention.
Gotcha.
Is in fact, there's been a couple of cases like that where someone has called and requested that the city actually conduct some sort of health inspection, which certainly our inspector will go out and say, well, it appears that something is going on. However, since they are not the qualified person to do that, they would generally make the referral to Dane County Public Health if it was an issue that needed to be addressed. So essentially, this is a cleaning up of the assigned duties of something that's already taken up by another jurisdiction.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move to 2C.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't try to take that one out of order? It seems to be pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
There's just, I mean, certainly if there was a desire by the body, there's no immediate hurry either, Alder, but certainly, yeah.
I mean,
Okay, 2C, consideration of resolution 25-10-2837, approving exterior revisions to the existing precise implementation plan for the Bloom brought forward by the Director of Planning.
Great. While the applicant's getting set up, I can just give a quick overview and then I'll be turning it over to them. But the applicant's seeking a modification to the approved PIP. This is for the Bloom, which is a 98-unit apartment building, currently under construction, nearing completion at the corner of Monona Drive and West Dean. This will also include the BMO Bank on the ground floor as well. So the modification being requested is to the exterior materials that was deemed substantive by city staff. The specific change is from chestnut to honeysuckle, one of the colors of the exterior materials of the exterior siding. In the application materials, the applicant shares that the color variance, the specific color variance that was part of the approved PIP was not available and the closest alternative was selected. This was not approved by city staff though, so that change was sort of taken on by the applicant themselves, and that led us to this position. This request, the changes to the PIP follow the same process as the approvals. So this was approved last Monday, it was reviewed last Monday by the Planning Commission, and they forwarded it to the to City Council with no recommendation, but shared that they did have some concerns with the proposal as put forward, and suggested that alternatives be reviewed, possible options to remedy, including repainting, replacements, or for the sidings to remain in place. They certainly were considering some of the environmental impacts and some of the potential waste that could be considered here, but they also were concerned with the impact that it did have to the design. So with that, again, the commission sort of asked for the applicant to explore some options, some alternatives, and I know the applicant is ready to sort of discuss that this evening, but with that, I'll pass it over to them to share some more information. Thanks.
Thanks, Doug.
So I'm Matt Murtos with Noel Development, joined with Leah Teskey from JLA, and we have Bahare from the Noel Development team here tonight as well. Just a quick overview on the project and an update on the timeline. The Bloom is a 4-story mixed-use multifamily development on the 4600 block of Monona Drive. It includes 7,500 square feet of retail, 5,000 of which will be for a new BMO Harris Bank branch on the ground floor on the corner of Dean and Monona. There's several sustainable elements included with the project, such as rooftop solar and a shared community electric zip car. After a lengthy review process, the project was finally approved for PIP approval in November of 2023 and broke ground in July of 2024. We're now just a little bit over a month away from completing the project at the end of next month, and look forward to welcoming residents December 1st. We're here tonight because of a deviation in the accent color for one of the siding colors of the project, deviated a bit from the originally submitted material. I want to personally apologize for that. We really did our best to try to align this selected product with what we saw in the renderings and elevations. I want to also state that this wasn't a value engineering initiative. Believe it or not, this color is from the premium line that James Hardy offers, their Dream Collection. So it's in no way a cost-cutting measure to the project. We understand that in certain sunlight conditions, certain times of the day, it can take on a different hue from what you see here on the board. And we do acknowledge that. This is what we had when we based our decision. We weren't able to predict the lighting conditions, how that may alter the appearance of the project. That said, we don't believe that this is a significant enough reason to add cost to the project by repainting or replacing the siding and landfilling a significant amount of material. I'll hand it over to Leah to talk more about the product and the alternatives.
Yeah, thank you. As Matt said, when we were looking for an alternate to the chestnut, which was represented in the material image in the approved PIP, we were looking toward what other materials we could use. We found one that matched what the elevations and the renderings that were approved, which is how we got to the color that we did. So we put together a material board, and I apologize that I couldn't get the stand working, but these materials represent the materials that are installed currently. And so the color that's really in question here is this honeysuckle color. We do acknowledge that it was represented slightly different in the material image. We do feel that it is a high quality product. It does carry a manufacturer warranty to the finish and the substrate. The other colors are substantially similar to the original. What you also see here on here is the approved mural. And so we really feel that this color palette goes well with the mural itself. We have looked at other alternatives that would allow us that would change the color, not necessarily the texture. So a paint would give us the same texture. This is on a cedar mill. We might get closer to the color that was originally represented in that material image, but the texture would you wouldn't still see that worn wood look. If we were to replace, that would come with additional time frame. We also it would come with a lot more embedded energy. Replacing a product, we'd have to remove this product, dispose of it, and then also get the new product, install it, and so we're really hoping to get the approval on the installed product, we have samples here to show if that's something that you would like to see. but we're also here to answer your questions as well.
Did you by any chance have the sample of what was the original choice, since we looked at we looked at samples when we approved the PIP at the Plan Commission?
I believe that we had only shared an image. It is on, I don't know if you can navigate to sheet A5, 205 PIP.
So you did not, so you brought physical models of the new color, but not the originally approved color?
Correct, because that was a discontinued color. It's a discontinued color. We don't have that.
There were no material board presented at the PIP, right? Yeah.
I see.
So that has not been too uncommon, that the material board itself is not shared. What you see in the PIP, and I believe the sheet that's going to be pulled up, is there were the typical renderings that sort of show each face of the building, and there was one specifically as part of this PIP package that sort of had photographs and elements to it. And that was really, and that's what's been referenced here, that's got more of the wood grain and those things. Certainly recognized with renderings, with both the sort of 2D as well as 3D options. Some of the colors can get changed there, but this had sort of photographs. And again, it's not too uncommon from these projects that we see that it's sort of an illustrative product until final orders are placed or whatever, but sort of an expectation that it would align closely to that, and as shared here, that was subsequently discontinued.
I think Neil's about to pull it up. Yeah, Doug.
Yeah, this body's job, we don't really look at colors like the Plan Commission. I mean, that's sort of what we rely on them to do, that kind of review. And they have found that this was a substantial change.
That's
deviation.
Development.
Whoops, wrong project. Let's try that one differently.
That's the senior development.
Oh, so this didn't look right.
I guess the problem that I have, and I think you've put the city in a difficult position by not having asked, when you discovered this was an issue, you should have called Doug, and we probably wouldn't be having this discussion. But now we're sort of faced with, do we force you to do an uneconomic thing, right? Because do you have an idea how much it would cost to replace the siding?
I've gotten some initial estimates. Could be 60 to 75,000.
Okay. So, and I'm also on the CDA, so I don't know that's investing that 60 or 75,000, and this is gonna make the building more valuable. So I'd rather not do that. The problem is, though, if we have developers come in and they don't comply with the PIP and they just go ahead and do something, and then they come to us and say, well, it's going to be really expensive to fix this, can't just let us do this, then is there a risk that Monona gets a reputation for hey, you don't really, you can fudge on the PIP and and you'll get it approved. So that's, to me at least, the answer is not obvious. So hopefully I guess we'll be talking about this in 2 weeks, and maybe it'll become more obvious to me anyway what we should do.
Yeah, Patrick?
I mean, the city of Madison has we're not the city of Madison, but they have a long history of making corrections when things like that happen, right? And forcing
the developer to make the correction.
To make the corrections,
right.
Yes. So it would not be unusual for us to do so. And it's
right.
just something to think about. And that's what I have to say at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Alder DePoulis, so I think based on what you just said, I think if I were a developer and I knew that that it was not uncommon for a city to ask a developer to make changes, I mean, I wouldn't want to put myself in that position. I would have done everything to prevent that from happening. If it really is a common occurrence that Madison often asks developers to no.
Quantity
Do it
details,
over.
yes.
You said you would do it this way. That's what we agreed to. I'm really sorry, but do it over. So it sounds like a known thing in the industry. If I'm wrong, I really do sympathize with you. I'm sure you were not out to hurt anyone. But as Alderwood, my colleague, said, we really are now in a very difficult position. I'm concerned about the precedent that this sets.
Yeah, hang on. I just want to make sure, sorry, I can't see Brian. Just want to make sure that nobody else was raising their hand. Neil?
Just obviously, certainly there is just the compliance aspect of this that is certainly concerning. And I think that's the sentiment that's been expressed here. There's also from a TIF standpoint, the city is an investor in this project. So we have more than not only do we have a legal right from a zoning standpoint to make this request, we are a significant and financial investor in this project. So while it may not be a safety issue, it may not even be a valuation issue, it is an issue of there is a particular product that we decided that we would make an investment in. And I think that does create, I would even say, an even additional incentive for the city to kind of make sure that it's getting what we had hoped for and what we had essentially had approved as part of that. So I do agree that there is concerns with precedent on this in terms of allowing this to be. Again, this isn't necessarily I guess what someone would call a critical item, but it is something that was clearly incorporated by reference into the approval. Is that correct, Mr. Plowman? And like I said, I certainly don't feel, and I would certainly defer to the city attorney on this, but I don't think we can pick and choose which items to suddenly say we were okay with or we were okay just changing on the fly. If it's part of the approval, it was part of the approval. So certainly that would be just a point I wanted to make, so.
I would like to ask before the next meeting if you can share with us the efforts made to find a similar product besides this one, and what other products are out there that may be more similar to the original, and maybe bring that to the next meeting, if possible.
We have some of that available if you wanted to look at it tonight.
Yes, please.
Okay. Can I ask a point of a clarification as well?
Yeah.
So the material image was approved in the PIP, but the elevations and the renderings were also approved in the PIP, and those colors are slightly different. We realize one is a representation of the other. I guess what I'd like to understand is then, does the material image take the precedent over the elevations and the renderings?
Would you, Doug, want to respond to that?
That would be how I would look to treat this, and I think particularly in this case, the photographic modeling of the evidence that's included within the PIP shows that visible wood grain. I know this is sort of, there's the texture to it, but it isn't visible. My read of it was that this accent was almost giving the impression of a wood product versus sort of a painted and sort of treated piece instead. So I think, again, as far as PIP to final product, tiny variation, manufacturer difference, that kind of thing, that's to be expected. I think you heard that from Planning Commission even on the printing last week, that can differ. And so I think that's where ideally Materials Board, and I think we were reflecting after the meeting that was probably something from COVID, sort of our virtual meetings that got lost in that process. That was feedback from the commission as well, that moving forward, Materials Boards to be included again, so we would have the physical item. But it was really the changes that we can see there and sort of the determination of being substantive there. So it would be the photograph that one specific sheet is effectively the Materials Board, is at least my interpretation of the PIP there.
Okay, thank you for answering that. If I may pass this down?
Yeah. I would just say that I couldn't concur, Matt, with you more in saying, I mean, I understand in this light that might have seemed a little safe, although I totally concur with Doug that when you knew you had to switch colors, the smart thing to do would have been to gone to Doug and say what we had represented is discontinued.
Sure.
Because that, as someone who literally drives that every single day, that definitely does not look like what's on the building, because on the building, it's so much brighter.
Yeah, and we recognize that. It's also, this color tone, this family, shows very differently in different quality of light. So we've got a building that has very strong east-west orientation, so you get a lot of bright light.
Yeah.
From one side of the afternoon to the other. So, I mean, I've actually got, so this is a picture of the 2 renderings from the PIP that was approved. These were taken 5 minutes apart on the same day.
Yeah.
So you can see there's drastic color difference depending on if it's in shade or if it's in light. So we feel that, you know, this is a brighter color. You only see slivers of it. It's a little bit of a brighter color. In the shade, it's a lot more of that darker, richer wood tone color. So. So what I've handed out is a chart that we've developed that basically shows some of the comparison of products. So option 1 is obviously leaving the color as installed, materials installed. The second option would be painting the existing color. Or the substrate warranty would stay in place, but we would have no finish warranty with that, which would mean that we would have probably a higher maintenance, more often maintenance. Painting it also doesn't create that wood-worn look, which was referenced as perhaps what was represented. But it may provide a closer color match. Talked a little bit about the sustainability impact. There's obviously some embedded energy to prepare and finish exterior materials. The timeline on paint is totally weather dependent. So if we've got a nice mild winter, it would be something we could perhaps take care of sooner. If not, it would be something that would be delayed until spring. With all of the options, we're also seeing potential damage to finished landscaping that would occur because the building is expected to be finished there. The third option would be to remove the honeysuckle James Hardie and replace it with a standard James Hardie color, of which there aren't very close color matches to that. Again, that doesn't come with that wood-worn look. And then our fourth option would be to demo the existing honeysuckle color in favor of, it's a Hardie product, but it comes with a third-party finishing that has that wood-worn look. Again, it's not an exact color match to the original, but it would have that wood, you'd see that wood grain a little bit more. And then those have similar sustainability and timeline impacts as well.
So this is a Hardie product as opposed to an LP Smart Side. It's a fiber cement as opposed to a composite.
So yes, in the approved PIP, it was listed as a fiber cement product. So we that is what's installed around the rest of the building. LP would be adding the material to it.
Okay, any other questions on this one? Yeah, Brian.
I know I was at Plan Commission, and I know Doug's earlier comment of, hang on, normally we have Plan Commission make decisions as it relates to finishes, and this body doesn't normally get into that ballpark. And I'm only commenting based on what was shared right now, and I don't know which direction I'm necessarily advocating for right now. However, items 3 and 4 list a series of different colors. Some that would be more solid color, it would still be on a textured product. The other is closer to what was rendered or on the material sheet.
Correct.
And would be more similar in the wood aspect.
Yep.
again, how it relates to the other materials, I'm not sure this body's the best body to make a determination. If 3 or 4 is chosen, items 3 or 4, there might be a recommendation that it go back to plan for which one of those colors are selected is a possibility. Because I think what we determined at plan just a week ago was the idea of like, hang on, if you're changing the PIP, council approved that, you got to go back there to find out, are they okay keeping it, or are they going to have you do something different? But the outcome here might also be, yeah, we want to do something different, and we want to go back there to help approve what it is that's chosen. So I just want to like voice that out there. If we pick items 3 or 4, we may want to consider who's helping select those items in relation to the project overall. Do you happen, well, I'm going to reserve even seeing those colors right now because I have a feeling if it's 3 or 4, that would be my recommendation. Even if it was probably item 2, actually.
We do have samples of all of those options here today. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
These choices, they weren't shared with Plan Commission when you met with them last?
They were not.
Okay.
When we approached Plan Commission, we were just looking for a straight approval.
Of what?
Of the honeysuckle color that's installed.
Oh, okay.
Again, perhaps our misunderstanding that we thought the value of the renderings and the drawings had equal value rather with the materials.
And I can just add the clarification there that the commission recommended that coming to council this week that the applicants sort of have some suggestions which they've presented this evening to help remedy or options for council to consider. If I may, just one additional thing that had come up as a question. I know there are other buildings across the city that have replaced siding and things like that. As far as timeline, clearly the warranty can be an indicator of that, but do you happen to have experience of longevity of this kind of product, when it may be replaced, for example, or expected lifespan as it relates to the warranty possibly?
That I do not, but that is information that I can provide.
Thanks.
I have another question.
Rick?
For Doug. Has this happened before, to your knowledge, where what was approved in the PIP didn't match what actually happened?
Not to this level, no. I believe there was a PIP change before my time at the current. I think there was some material changes or something that, but I think that was prior to construction coming in. So it was sort of earlier in the process itself.
So it didn't involve thousands of dollars in expense?
Yes, Neil?
When were we first made aware of this being an issue?
So that was about August this year, mid-August. That was flagged to the developer, and well, I should say to the contractor working on the project, just with some clarification. So it started off as, is this the chestnut color? Can I get some clarification of that? And because that has been the case in the past where I am completing my site visit and maybe I notice that and say, is this what we were expecting, and can I get some verification effectively? So, I don't know, receipt invoices or something like that to clarify it. And that was when the conversation started and we began this process.
I have
Right.
a suggestion.
Yeah.
Thinking about what Brian had said, it would be my suggestion that we refer this plan at this meeting, have them give us a recommendation, return to us with that recommendation, and that would be our second read when we have a recommendation from the Plan Commission. Which of these 4?
Plan Commission, correct me if I'm wrong, but even if they had had samples, was it not the Plan Commission's request? Am I wrong about that? That they didn't want it to make a recommendation to us?
Because the request made at Plan Commission was approval of what's installed.
Right. So
Right,
that's
this
all
is
we're-
different.
This is different.
Correct.
And that was part of the encouragement of that group of saying, okay, when you go there, start getting your feet going on what are the other options.
Right.
Because we don't want you to be delayed any longer than you need to be delayed.
So wouldn't it
But
speed up
really, it
the
doesn't.
process if we referred it back to Plan Commission at this meeting?
It sounds like the applicant might be open to remedying this rather than just saying either approve or deny. They're, I think, recognizing that if what is installed is not approved, we got to come up with another option.
So it would go back to plan if this body says, no, we don't approve the changes. Then it would go back to plan to come up with alternates. Okay.
That's one of,
That's what
that
you're
was the
saying.
recommendation I had. If
Yeah.
you select two,
We're not here to choose
item 2,
colors,
3, or
though.
4,
Right.
it would be most appropriate that plan
Choose the
help
colors.
make a
Yeah.
recommendation of which one of those
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, but I think what Doug said is that's not normally our job to
Yep.
get into the aesthetics of things.
That's exactly what we're
Yeah,
saying.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
It's
And so
it's,
why not refer it to Plan? and-
that's exactly what we're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we're saying that it'd be our job to say yes or no, we approve or don't approve of the changes. If we say no, we don't approve, then we go to Plan Commission and let them figure out the colors.
Oh, I guess I wasn't suggesting that we make a up or down vote, just to save time.
Yeah, I think to the point, Alder, I think the question at Plan Commission and technically is a yes or no
Right.
on allowing the existing materials to remain on the building. That is essentially, that was what went to Plan Commission.
Yeah.
So that is the question that has essentially come forward. So if that's a yes,
Yeah.
well, we're fine. But if it's no, then I think you basically are referring, you could make a referral back to Plan Commission to evaluate options 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I think is what we're kind of saying the same
Right,
thing.
we're all saying
I
the same
think so.
thing.
I see
You
where
all
we're
are saying the
fine.
same.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're gaining
So
consensus here.
Is time of the essence? I mean,
I would have to think so.
it is.
It is. So,
Time is money.
if,
I have a motion.
does someone want to make a motion?
I'll move that we suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
Second.
And I have a second on suspending the rules.
And this is regarding the request for the approval of the installed product.
Correct.
Right.
Um,
All those in favor of suspending the rules and taking it out of order?
Aye.
Nay.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Oh, gosh.
Abstentions? Okay, motion carries.
I don't think so. You have
There's
to
only
have
one
a
nay.
You'd have to have a 3/4 vote to suspend the rules.
It's 4 to 1.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you
Yep.
both said no.
Nope,
No.
just one.
Okay.
it was
sorry.
just one.
Just one.
So we're now suspending the rules. Now do I have a motion?
I move denial of the approved product.
Ryan's moved. Do I have a second?
Are you going to include with that are you going to do a separate motion on referring it back to plan?
I'll move it all in one. So a denial of the installed product and referral back to Plan Commission for options 2, 3, and 4 to be considered and recommended.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Rick. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
I do. Well,
There you
I just will say I'm going to vote against this because I didn't come here tonight expecting to vote on this. I
Oh,
thought
yeah.
came with the expectation that we'd have another 2 weeks before we had to vote on it. So I'm not ready to vote on up or down on this one, but.
And it is only 2 weeks.
Okay.
But-
So,
So now I
Brian.
probably can't back out of
No, hang on. So what I was going to say is that our next Plan Commission is after the next meeting of this body.
Oh,
So
You know what?
moving forward tonight is not as critical.
I could potentially, the only thing would be noticing would have to go in by this Friday, but I could preemptively notice. There'd be a modest cost associated with that, but the Class 1 notice would be the only thing that would need to go in ahead of the first council meeting in November.
Yep.
But that's it.
So if it did not happen tonight and it came back in 2 weeks for this body, and then got moved to a plan, there would still be sufficient time to get it on that first plan agenda or not?
Logistically, it would be unusual, because packets would have gone out that day, but with knowing this may be coming, we could work on that. Certainly you and I could talk about that, but yeah, I'd be comfortable.
I just don't want to miss that window
Agreed.
in November.
I do have a question for the guests. I appreciate you bringing up the sustainability costs. Do you know how many pounds of materials are?
We're working to get that number.
Yeah. All right.
So, any other questions? We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Any other discussion before we take the vote?
Well, yeah. So based on what Brian said about the schedules,
Right.
if we vote it down and refer it to plan, then it'll still be taken up at the plan commission and whatever that second Tuesday or second Monday.
Right.
So I just have a question about procedure.
Can I have go ahead.
Yeah, so my procedural
Right away.
question is, since Alder Holmquist brought it to my attention that waiting 2 weeks would not upset the order of this going back to plan, how do we back out of taking this out of order? What's the procedure for that,
Well, but
if we wanted
I
to?
thought what we were hearing, I thought what we heard from, to some extent, waiting until our meeting, I could be wrong, but were you
It's
saying that
doable.
waiting until the 20th for us, so in other words, sorry, this is the 20th, I've lost track of the days. If we wait until our next meeting,
Right.
that puts you behind the 8 ball in terms of getting the materials out on time for the plan commission meeting. So would it not be easier for you in terms of the noticing that you need to do, as well as the plan commission, to have a decision tonight?
It would be it's doable either way.
Okay.
I could act preemptively, and it would be a different timeline than typical, but to accommodate, I'm willing to do either.
Okay.
It's possible.
Okay. Okay. So, Teresa, to answer your question,
Yeah.
there's a motion there was a motion on the floor, so the person who made the motion, I believe, can withdraw
Yeah.
the motion, the first motion, because we have a motion relating to this on the floor.
Yep. And so,
And after we withdraw this motion,
Yeah.
then we can withdraw the motion to suspend and take it out of order.
well, that would stay in effect. We would just
Yeah.
take no action.
Just take no action on it,
I
right?
think then we could just
So
table
we'll
it.
table it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So
That would work, yep.
I'll withdraw my motion for denial and referral to plan commission.
Okay, do I have,
Does the second?
does the second agree with that?
There we go.
Okay,
Thank you.
Rick's,
All right.
okay.
And then I'll move
To table,
to table.
suspending it and taking it out of order.
We're just it's already taken out of order, so
Yeah.
It's
now
just-
we're just saying we're not going to act on it.
The motion to
tonight.
table is the only thing you need.
Yeah,
Right,
So I'll move to table.
I'll
Okay.
second.
okay.
Thank you.
Did that all make sense?
We have to vote.
Surprisingly, yes.
Okay.
Well, you know, a roll call
So,
or vote? An
a
actual
voice vote?
Okay.
All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you got to learn a lot about public works equipment.
Yeah.
That takes us to item number H, reports of committees, commissions, boards, mayor, city administrator, city attorney, department managers, sustainability efforts, and diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. I'm going to start.
No report.
Okay.
Patrick,
You, Doug?
No report.
Okay.
No.
Now,
Yeah, I'm not going to give reports either. I'll save that for next time. But I do want to make a point that since the last time, stop it, all of you, since the last time we met, we celebrated Indigenous Peoples Day. And it doesn't take much in-depth searching to find some really great information about this important celebration. And something that I found really touching was that, as school children, we're all learned the phrase, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And we think of it as this, happy moment of this, wonderful, brave sailor who discovered this magical place. But in reality, the contact with European settlers devastated Indigenous people, loss of life, disruption of traditions, loss of land. And so it is, in my strong opinion, and I believe that of my colleagues, that we take a moment to reflect on that part of our history and I don't know what else to say about that. So,
That works.
yeah.
Brian?
No report.
Thank you. Colleen? No. Neil?
No report.
No report. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
We can tell we put the routine hour
Yes, it's
about almost
late.
3 hours.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.